In a peaceful, wealthy neighborhood in Vermont, where everyone knew each other and life appeared to be perfect, there was a hidden secret that would change everything. Beneath the charm of this picturesque town was a story that would tear apart the lives of two highly regarded people, Jake and Nina Bennett. To the outside world, they were the ideal couple, admired by their community in raising two lovely daughters in what seemed to be a blissful marriage. But behind the closed doors of their seemingly perfect home, betrayal, lust, and jealousy brewed. But what began as a seemingly happy life was slowly unraveling. Jake and Nina's once passionate love was fading, and their lives were headed toward a confrontation no one could have anticipated. On a chilly November evening, the body of a man was found in a remote cabin. As investigators dug deeper, a shocking story unfolded, one filled with obsession, dark secrets, and a marriage destroyed by a deadly affair. This is the story of how love turned to betrayal, sparking a chain of events that spiraled out of control. Before we dive into the full details, take a moment to show your support by liking this video. Also, tell us, where do you call home? In the fall, Vermont is breathtaking, with its golden and red leaves framing perfectly kept lawns and cobblestone paths. Against this beautiful backdrop stood Jake and Nina Bennett, respected members of the community. Jake, 45, was the well-liked principal of the local high school, the charismatic figure who had transformed the school into a place of academic excellence. Nina, 40, ran a successful nonprofit organization that supported underprivileged children. Together, they were the picture of success and stability. Their two teenage daughters, Olivia and Sophie, were navigating their own paths, protected by the world their parents had built. From the outside, the Bennetts seemed like the happiest family in town. They hosted grand fundraisers, attended community events, and were often seen holding hands at local gatherings. But even the most perfect-looking lives can hide serious cracks. Inside their large suburban home, things were very different. Their marriage, once full of love and passion, had grown dull. What was once a deep connection had been replaced by routine, obligation, and an overwhelming sense of distance. Nina felt increasingly isolated, spending long hours at her office or traveling for charity work. But meanwhile, Jake was deeply absorbed in his duties at the school. The spark that had once fueled their relationship had long since gone out, leaving both of them longing for something more. However, Jake, that longing found a form in Maya Brooks. She was a 30-year-old school counselor, smart, lively, in everything Nina no longer seemed to be. At first, Jake's interest in her was innocent, just small flirtations and long conversations after work. But soon, it turned into something far more dangerous. Bored with the monotony of home life, Jake was drawn to Maya's youthful energy. She made him feel alive in a way that Nina hadn't in years. Meanwhile, Nina had her own secret. Grant Donovan, a 60-year-old board member of her nonprofit, had been a steady presence in her life. Their relationship started off strictly professional, but as Nina felt more neglected by Jake, Grant's charm and attention became harder to resist. It gave her what Jake no longer did: admiration, desire, and a sense of escape from her routine life. As Jake and Nina continued to put on a united front for the world, their private lives were crumbling. Two both were keeping dangerous secrets, and it was only a matter of time before everything exploded. Jake wasn't sure exactly when things with Maya crossed the line. What started as harmless conversations and lingering touches soon evolved into something more. He found himself looking forward to seeing her more than anything else. She was full of life, laughing with him and paying attention to him in ways Nina hadn't for a long time. As the months passed, Jake and Maya's connection grew stronger. Their first kiss happened one night after a school event. He had driven her home, and in the darkness of his car, their passion broke free. From that moment on, their meetings became secretive. They started meeting in empty classrooms after hours or sneaking away to hotels whenever Jake could find an excuse to leave home. But what Jake didn't know was that Nina was already involved in her own affair. Grant Donovan wasn't just any man. He had a confidence and power that drew people to him. Nina had admired him for years, and when he began showing her the attention that Jake no longer did, she couldn't resist. At first, it was just a way to escape the emptiness of her marriage, but as their relationship grew more intimate, Nina realized she was in deeper than she had ever intended. Grant wasn't just an escape anymore. He had become something she needed. He was older, more experienced, and made her feel alive again. Nina even fantasized about leaving Jake for Grant, but something always stopped her. Maybe it was the security Jake provided, or perhaps it was the fear of how their daughters and the community would react. Either way, Nina felt trapped between the life she had and the life she secretly desired. For the time being, the affairs of both Jake and Nina remained hidden, and neither of them noticed how their marriage was deteriorating. They were both wrapped up in their own secret relationships, oblivious to the fact that everything was on the verge of falling apart. They were living on borrowed time, and it wouldn't be long before their carefully maintained balance would collapse. The first cracks started showing when Jake became paranoid. His relationship with Maya had intensified, and she began demanding more from him, more time, more attention, and more commitment. Jake found himself constantly distracted, making excuses to leave home and fabricating reasons for late-night meetings and weekend conferences that didn't exist. Every time Maya called or sent a message, his heart raced, torn between excitement and the fear that Nina might discover the affair and their seemingly perfect life would come crashing down. Meanwhile, Nina's situation with Grant was becoming just as complicated. Once calm and composed, Grant had started showing signs of jealousy, but he became possessive, pushing Nina to leave Jake and fully commit to him. However, Nina wasn't sure she was ready for that. What once felt like a thrilling escape had now turned into a stressful situation, with Grant making more demands than she could handle. She found herself caught between the life she had carefully built with Jake and the fantasy life Grant was offering. The tension between Jake and Nina became impossible to ignore. They barely spoke to each other, only exchanging words when necessary, like discussing their daughters or planning for social events. Nina started to sense something was off with Jake. His frequent absences, his distant behavior, and how he seemed to avoid her were all signs. But she didn't confront him. She had her own secrets to keep. One evening during a particularly quiet dinner, Nina's suspicions deepened. Jake's phone buzzed on the table, and she noticed him glance at it quickly before stuffing it into his pocket. Her stomach twisted with unease. Later that night, after Jake had fallen asleep, she took his phone and slipped into the bathroom. Using the passcode she had memorized months earlier, she unlocked it. What she found shattered her illusions. The messages between Jake and Maya were explicit, revealing a passionate affair that had been going on for months. Nina's mind raced as she pieced together the lies, the late nights, the fake business trips. The anger she felt was almost unbearable, but she kept it under control. She had her own secrets, and any rash actions could expose her too. On the other side, Jake had begun to grow suspicious of Nina as well. He noticed her frequent absences, her distracted behavior, and how distant she seemed even when they were together. One night, while Nina was supposedly working late, Jake decided to check her email. Though what he found confirmed his worst fears, the emails between Nina and Grant weren't professional at all. They were filled with suggestive language and intimate details about their secret meetings. For the first time in years, Jake felt the sting of betrayal. He had justified his own affair by convincing himself that Nina no longer loved him. But now he realized she had been deceiving him just as much. So the discovery of Nina's affair fueled Jake's jealousy, anger, and wounded pride. The knowledge that she had been unfaithful set something dangerous in motion. The cabin, nestled deep in the woods and far from society's gaze, had been a place of secrecy for Jake and Nina. For months, they had lived double lives, indulging in secret affairs while maintaining their image as a respectable couple in town. But now the lies were starting to unravel. Jake's obsession with Maya had intensified. What started as harmless flirtation had turned into a fiery affair. Their stolen moments together, sometimes in cheap motels, sometimes in hidden corners after school, awakened something in Jake that he hadn't felt in years. So Maya brought excitement back into his life, filling a void left by his crumbling marriage. So that as Maya demanded more, Jake became more desperate to hold on to both his affair and his marriage. Nina's relationship with Grant, on the other hand, was dangerous in a different way. At first, it gave her a sense of control, a way to cope with her dissatisfaction. But Grant, once charming, had grown possessive. He criticized her for hesitating to leave Jake and pressured her to start a new life with him. Nina found herself drawn to his authority, but also repelled by his growing need to dominate every aspect of her life. Both Jake and Nina were spiraling. They had managed to maintain their suburban facade for months, but now the cracks were showing. Their once mundane marriage had become a hotbed of resentment, betrayal, and jealousy. Jake's suspicions about Nina grew stronger. She was frequently absent, making excuses about work trips and long meetings. He noticed her secretive phone calls and the way she seemed distant, even when she was at home. One night, while Nina was out, Jake decided to search through her things. In her desk drawer, he found an old phone she had hidden. It was a separate device she had been using to communicate with Grant. The explicit messages between them made Jake's blood boil. For Jake, this discovery was a devastating blow. His affair with Maya had been exciting, a distraction from his unhappiness at home. But finding out about Nina's affair was something else. It wasn't just that she had lied, it was the depth of her deception that hurt the most. Jake's feelings of jealousy and rage grew stronger with each passing day. Soon, he wasn't just angry at Grant, he also began to despise Nina for betraying him. He became obsessed with figuring out how far her affair had gone and how long it had been happening. The thought that Nina might leave him for Grant was unbearable. Meanwhile, Nina started to feel trapped as Grant became more unpredictable. He sent her demanding texts, urging her to leave Jake and run away with him. What once excited Nina about Grant's dominant nature now felt menacing. He was no longer satisfied with their secret meetings. He wanted her all to himself, and his jealousy of Jake began to take a dangerous turn. At the same time, Jake's affair with Maya was spiraling out of control. Maya had grown tired of hiding in the shadows, wanting more than their secret rendezvous. She demanded a future with Jake, free of the lies and secrecy. She gave him an ultimatum to leave Nina or she would end the affair. But Jake wasn't ready to leave his wife. His identity was tied to his family, his respected position as the high school principal, and the image of a devoted husband. Losing all of that terrified him, yet he couldn't imagine losing Maya either. The pressure mounted, and both Jake and Nina were on a collision course they couldn't foresee. The town of Brentwood, usually free from scandal, was starting to buzz with rumors. It began at the school where some of Maya's coworkers noticed how much time she spent with Jake. Maya, unable to contain her frustrations, had confided in a friend about how Jake was hesitating to leave his wife. Soon, the gossip spread through the town like wildfire. Nina wasn't immune to rumors either. Grant, with his high-profile role on the board of her nonprofit, had always attracted attention, and his possessiveness over Nina was becoming more obvious. They had been careless recently, meeting in public places and attending out-of-town conferences together. People were talking, and Nina felt the walls closing in. It wasn't just the rumors that threatened their secret. Technology made discretion nearly impossible. One evening, Nina received an anonymous email with the chilling subject line, "I know what you've been doing." Inside were blurry but unmistakable photos of her and Grant embracing outside a hotel. Panic set in. She had no idea who had sent the email or what they wanted, but one thing was clear: her affair was no longer a secret. Jake's affair was also on the brink of being exposed. Maya, growing more impatient, began sending him angry texts, demanding he make a decision. She even threatened to go public with their relationship if he didn't leave Nina. What had once been thrilling was now dangerous, and Jake felt like he was losing control. One afternoon, Maya showed up at his office, visibly upset, tears streaming down her face, and threatened to reveal everything. Desperate to keep things under wraps, Jake promised he would leave Nina soon, even though he had no intention of doing so. At home, the tension between Jake and Nina was unbearable. They barely spoke, both consumed by their guilt and fears. When they did speak, it was stiff and forced, only talking about their daughters or social commitments. Their daughters, Olivia and Sophie, sensed the change. They noticed the long silences, the missed family dinners, and the awkward smiles at public events. The family, once admired by the community, was falling apart, and no one seemed able to stop it. Nina was constantly anxious. Grant's demands were growing more intense, and his once charming nature had turned dark. He sent her messages at all hours, accusing her of lying, and even threatened to expose their affair if she didn't leave Jake. But Nina couldn't bring herself to walk away from her life. Even though she no longer loved Jake, their lives were too intertwined. Their daughters, their home, their reputation, the community. Destroying all of that was something she couldn't bear. Jake, on the other hand, was consumed with thoughts of revenge. He knew about Grant now, and every part of him wanted to confront him and make him pay. But he also knew that doing so would expose his own affair. The thought of losing Maya was unbearable, but the fear of losing everything else, his family, his career, the respect of the community, was even worse. He felt trapped by his own choices, and the walls were closing in fast. The night of November 15th was dark, with snow heavy in the air. Jake had followed Nina to Grant's cabin, a secluded retreat deep in the woods. He had discovered the location weeks earlier after finding a note in Nina's purse. For weeks, he had bottled up his rage, waiting for the right moment to confront them. When Nina pulled up to the cabin that night, she was already uneasy. Grant had been more erratic than ever, sending her a flood of texts that swung from desperate to threatening. She didn't know what to expect from him, but she knew she couldn't keep up this double life much longer. Something had to give. Inside the cabin, Grant was pacing, his mood dark. He greeted Nina with a cold stare, and the tension in the room was thick. He demanded to know why she hadn't left Jake yet. Nina tried to calm him, to explain that it wasn't as simple as he thought, but Grant wasn't listening. He accused her of using him to escape her dull marriage, with no intention of ever following through on her promises. Nina's frustration boiled over, and she yelled back, defending herself. But her words only made Grant angrier. He grabbed her arm, his grip tight and painful, and in that moment, Nina felt a surge of fear. Things had crossed a line, and this was no longer the man she thought she knew. The charming man Nina had once been drawn to was gone. In his place stood someone dangerous. Just as Grant's grip on her arm tightened, the cabin door flew open. Jake stormed in, his face twisted with anger. He had been outside listening to their argument and seeing Grant grab Nina was the final trigger. Without hesitation, Jake charged at Grant, and the two men quickly found themselves in a violent struggle in the dimly lit room. Nina screamed, desperately trying to separate them, but the fight had already escalated beyond control. When the chaos, Jake spotted a fire poker near the hearth. Acting on impulse, he grabbed it and swung it at Grant. The poker struck with a sickening thud, and Grant collapsed to the ground, blood pooling around his head. The room fell into a heavy silence, broken only by Nina's ragged breathing. For a brief moment, neither Jake nor Nina moved. Jake stood frozen, staring down at Grant's lifeless body as the horrifying reality of what he had done started to sink in. Nina, in complete shock, struggled to process what had just unfolded. She had come to the cabin to end things with Grant, but now he was dead, and her husband was standing over the body, holding the murder weapon. Panic gripped them both as they realized the gravity of the situation. Jake dropped the fire poker, his hands trembling. Nina's mind raced as she tried to think of a way out. They couldn't go to the police. If the truth about their affairs came out, their lives would be ruined. There was only one option: they had to cover up the crime. Working together, they cleaned up the scene as best they could. They wiped down surfaces, trying to erase any evidence of their presence. Jake wrapped Grant's body in a tarp and dragged it outside, loading it into the back of his truck. Snow had begun to fall, covering the tracks they left behind. In the dead of night, they drove to a nearby lake and dumped the body, watching as it disappeared beneath the icy water. Back at the cabin, Nina destroyed any evidence of her relationship with Grant. She deleted all their texts and emails and burned the letters he had written her. Meanwhile, Jake disposed of the fire poker by tossing it into the lake, hoping to erase all traces of their crime. They returned home in silence, the weight of what they had done hanging heavily between them. So neither spoke that night again, as if they had made an unspoken pact to bury the memory. But the guilt lingered simmering beneath the surface, ready to erupt at any moment. Days turned into weeks, and the town of Brentwood was buzzing with rumors about Grant's sudden disappearance. His colleagues at the nonprofit reported him missing, and the police launched an investigation. Jake and Nina tried to continue their lives as if nothing had changed, but the strain was beginning to show. Jake became paranoid, constantly looking over his shoulder, fearing the police would show up at any moment. Nina, consumed with guilt, couldn't stop thinking about how her affair had led to Grant's death. The pressure weighed heavily on both of them, and their once ideal marriage began to crumble. Detective Leah Porter was assigned to investigate Grant's disappearance. A seasoned investigator known for cracking difficult cases, Monroe quickly realized something wasn't right. Grant had no history of running away, and there was no logical reason for him to vanish without a trace. Monroe began interviewing Grant's colleagues and acquaintances, and it didn't take long for her to uncover his affair with Nina. This discovery led her to Jake, and soon Monroe learned about Jake's affair with Maya as well. The tangled web of infidelity was unraveling, and Monroe knew she was onto something. But without a body, there was no solid proof of foul play. Monroe continued digging, following the digital trail Grant had left behind. She secured warrants to search the Bennett's phones and computers, and the data confirmed her suspicions. The text between Grant and Nina revealed escalating tension in the days leading up to his disappearance, with Grant growing increasingly erratic. Meanwhile, Jake's sparse messages to Nina hinted at a marriage slowly falling apart, driven by the weight of their secrets. The breakthrough came when Monroe found surveillance footage from a gas station near Grant's cabin on the night he disappeared. The footage showed Jake's truck driving away from the area in the early morning hours with a large, tarp-covered object in the back. It was enough to bring Jake in for questioning. At first, Jake stuck to his story, claiming he'd been out driving after an argument with Nina to clear his head. But Monroe, relentless in questioning, began to pick apart the inconsistencies in his alibi. Under the mounting pressure, cracks started to form. Monroe then brought Nina in for questioning. While Nina initially seemed composed, Monroe noticed a fragility in her that hinted at a breaking point. Monroe pushed harder, and finally, Nina broke down. In a moment of anguish, she confessed everything about her affair with Grant, the fight at the cabin, and how Jake had killed him in a fit of rage. She insisted that it had been an accident, that Jake hadn't meant to kill Grant, but it was too late. With Nina's confession and the surveillance footage, Monroe had enough evidence to arrest Jake. He was charged with second-degree murder. Nina, initially treated as a witness, was later charged with accessory to murder and conspiracy. The trial became a media sensation, turning the once revered Bennetts into the center of public fascination and scorn. In court, the prosecution painted a grim picture of a couple driven by greedlust and jealousy, their double lives spiraling out of control and ending in murder. Jake's defense argued that he had acted in self-defense, claiming Grant had been threatening Nina and Jake had only acted to protect her. But the forensic evidence told a different story. The angle of the blow that killed Grant, the blood spatter patterns, and the lack of any defensive wounds on Jake all pointed to an intentional act of violence. Nina, in exchange for a reduced sentence, pleaded guilty to lesser charges and testified against Jake. Their detailed account of the events leading up to Grant's death was damning. The emotional weight of her testimony swayed the jury, and in the end, Jake was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Nina received a 10-year sentence for her role in the cover-up. Thank you for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe to support the channel. And don't forget to leave your thoughts about this case in the comments below. At the heart of this turmoil was Emily Wade, a well-loved high school English teacher. Known for her warm smile and dedication to her students, Emily was the kind of person everyone admired. Her husband, Brandon, was a successful real estate agent with a magnetic charm that could win over anyone. Together, they seemed like the perfect pair, often seen holding hands at the farmer's market or cheering side by side at Friday night football games. But appearances can be misleading. Beneath their seemingly perfect relationship lurked secrets that would soon unravel their world. The spark that ignited this impending disaster was Emily's younger sister, Chloe. 10 years younger than Emily, Chloe had always been the adventurous, carefree spirit of the family, bouncing from one city to another. Their recent return to Springfield stirred up old tensions and set new desires in motion. So Thorne family was preparing for their annual autumn gathering, usually a time for celebration and connection. But this year's reunion would end not in joy, but in tragedy. Emily Marie Thorne had spent her entire life in Springfield. As the eldest of two sisters, she was always seen as the responsible one, the pillar her family leaned on. From a young age, Emily had a love for literature and a natural gift for teaching. She excelled academically at Springfield High, where she would later return to work as a teacher. After finishing high school, Emily earned a degree in English literature from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Her college years were filled with academic success and personal growth, though her heart remained tied to her hometown. So after graduating with honors, she came back to Springfield to begin her teaching career. It was during her first year as a teacher that Emily met Brandon Wade. At 23 years old, she was full of optimism and couldn't help but be drawn to Brandon's confidence and charm. Their relationship blossomed quickly with romantic gestures and shared dreams. Till Brandon spoke of building a life in Springfield and raising a family there, a vision Emily found irresistible. Stability and community were values she cherished, and she soon fell deeply in love with both Brandon and the life he promised. After a year of dating, they married in a beautiful ceremony that became the talk of the town for years to come. Emily embraced her new role as a wife with the same dedication she brought to everything else in her life. She juggled her teaching responsibilities with supporting Brandon's career, always putting the needs of others before her own. For years, she believed she had found the happy ending she had always dreamed of, unaware that cracks were beginning to form in the foundation of her marriage. The Brandon Wade came from a wealthy family with deep roots in Springfield. The Thorne name carried a legacy of charm, success, and a touch of danger. Growing up, Brandon always felt the weight of maintaining his family's reputation. Known as a mischievous boy with a knack for getting out of trouble, he relied more on charm than effort to navigate through life. Even in high school, he coasted by on charisma rather than academic performance. College didn't offer him much direction either, and after a lukewarm experience, he returned to Springfield to join his father's real estate business. Brandon's natural talent for sales soon made him one of the top agents in the area. His charm and connections within the community gave him a competitive edge. He enjoyed the status and recognition his success brought him, and when he met Emily, he felt like he had found everything he was missing. In her, he saw the qualities he lacked: stability, depth, and kindness. He pursued her with the same intensity he used in closing deals, determined to make her a part of his life. Marrying Emily felt like the final piece of the puzzle that would make him truly worthy of his family's legacy. However, beneath Brandon's polished exterior lay insecurities and restless desires. He thrived on the excitement of the chase, whether in business or in his personal life. As time passed, the spark in his marriage to Emily began to fade, leaving him vulnerable to temptations he couldn't resist. Chloe Reed, Emily's younger sister, had always been a wild spirit, much to the frustration of her straying and the curiosity of the townspeople. Growing up in Emily's shadow, Chloe was constantly compared to her older sister, who seemed to do everything right. While Emily was responsible and focused, Chloe was impulsive and artistic. Her teenage years were marked by rebellion and conflicts with her family, and the day after graduating high school, she left Springfield to search for freedom and adventure. For years, Chloe drifted from one city to another, working odd jobs and chasing her dream of becoming an artist. She stayed in touch with her family sporadically, sending postcards from Seattle or making the occasional phone call from Miami, always with the promise that she was close to something big. But at 28, with her savings drained and her dreams unfulfilled, Chloe found herself back in Springfield, living in her childhood bedroom once again. She took a job as a barista at the local coffee shop, where her tales of far-off places and bold experiences intrigued the locals. However, returning to small-town life wasn't easy for Chloe. She felt trapped by the familiarity of the place and judged by those around her. In her frustration and vulnerability, she reconnected with Brandon, her brother-in-law, a decision that would trigger a series of events leading to disaster. Emily first sensed that something was off on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday afternoon. She was sitting alone in her classroom, grading papers as the autumn sunlight cast long shadows across the empty desks. The notification on Brandon's linked iPad caught her eye, a text message that would be the first hint of the storm brewing in her marriage. Brandon had left his iPad at home, and when Emily glanced at it, a new message from Chloe appeared. Text was simple, "Can't wait to see you later. Same place." The words, though innocent on the surface, sent a chill through Emily. Something about the tone felt off, triggering a wave of suspicion she couldn't ignore. Over the next few weeks, Emily began noticing things she hadn't paid attention to before. Brandon's late nights at the office became more frequent. He was oddly protective of his phone, keeping it either in his pocket or turned face down at all times. Meanwhile, Chloe, who had been a regular guest at their house since her return to Springfield, suddenly became distant, offering flimsy excuses to avoid family dinners. Emily tried to brush off her growing doubts, telling herself she was being paranoid. After all, Chloe and Brandon had always gotten along well. Wasn't it normal for them to be friends? But despite her efforts to stay calm, the unease in her heart only grew stronger. The truth hit Emily hard on a rainy Saturday afternoon. She decided to surprise Brandon at his office, hoping to convince him to leave early and enjoy a rare weekend together. As she neared the real estate agency, she spotted Brandon's car in its usual spot, but her heart skipped a beat when she noticed another familiar vehicle. Parked discreetly around the corner was Chloe's old Volkswagen Beetle. Emily's pulse quickened as she made her way closer to the office. Through the rain-streaked window, she could make out two figures inside Brandon's private office. They were locked in an embrace, their bodies pressed tightly together, silhouettes merging as one. Emily stood frozen, unable to believe what she was seeing. In that instant, her world crumbled. Instead of confronting them, Emily quietly walked back to her car, her mind a swirling storm of emotions, anger, heartbreak, and betrayal. She drove aimlessly through the streets, not knowing where to go, until she found herself at the edge of Lake Springfield. It was the same place where she and Brandon had shared their first kiss. Staring out over the calm waters, Emily let the reality of the situation sink in. Memories flashed in her mind: Brandon's late nights, Chloe's awkward avoidance, and the whispers from town gossip she had dismissed. But it all made sense now. How long had this been going on? How could her sister, her own flesh and blood, do this to her? Sitting there by the lake, something inside Emily changed. The kind forgiving woman she had always been melted away, replaced by someone colder, more calculating. She made a vow they would pay for what they had done. Emily's thoughts turned to the upcoming family gathering, an annual event she had once loved. But now it was no longer just a tradition. It was the perfect opportunity to expose their betrayal in front of everyone. As Emily drove home, her plan began to take shape. This gathering would no longer be a celebration. It would become the stage for her revenge. In the days leading up to the event, Emily moved through her routine like a ghost, outwardly calm but seething inside. She smiled at her students, exchanged pleasantries with coworkers, and even managed civil conversations with Brandon. But beneath that composed exterior, her mind was focused on her plan. The family gathering, set for the following weekend, was a beloved tradition that brought together relatives and close friends. Emily decided this would be the perfect moment to reveal Brandon and Chloe's affair. Her preparations were meticulous. She collected screenshots of messages from Brandon's iPad, gathered credit card statements showing suspicious purchases, and even snapped a few photos of Brandon and Chloe together around town. She compiled everything into a folder, a damning collection of evidence she planned to unveil at just the right moment. Emily knew exactly how she wanted the evening to unfold. She would wait until dinner was in full swing, when everyone was relaxed and slightly tipsy from the flowing wine. Then she would rise to make her usual toast, a tradition she had never missed. But this year, her words would carry venom. What started as praise for love and family would end with the shocking revelation of Brandon and Chloe's betrayal. Despite her determination,
Emily found herself wrestling with moments of doubt. Was public humiliation really the solution? Would it bring her the closure she craved or just deepen the wounds? But each time she hesitated, the memory of Brandon and Chloe's embrace steeled her resolve. So there was no turning back now.
The night before the gathering,
Emily sat alone in her study, practicing her speech.
Her heart
pounded with a mix of anticipation and dread.
She knew
that once she set her plan in motion, there would be no one doing it.
Nothing
would ever be the same again, not for her, not for Brandon, and not for Chloe.
When Emily finally crawled into bed that night,
lying next to the man who had betrayed her, she felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, they would face the consequences of their actions.
The day of the Thorne family gathering arrived, bright and crisp, with the cool autumn air carrying the scent of fallen leaves. It was a picture-perfect Saturday, masking the storm that was about to break. Emily rose early, her stomach churning with nerves as she prepared for the event. Brandon, blissfully unaware of the disaster waiting to unfold, cheerfully whistled as he set up tables in the backyard. By mid-afternoon, the guests began to arrive. Frank Miller and Martha Miller were the first to show up, bringing their famous apple pie and loud laughter. Cousins followed Ethan Parker with his new wife, Nina Parker, and Laura Parker with her 3 lively children. Friends of the family trickled in, each adding to the growing festive atmosphere. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. Laughter filled the air, wine flowed freely, and the scent of roasted vegetables and baked goods wafted through the backyard. But beneath Emily's calm exterior, her heart pounded with anticipation. This was it. So the moment she had planned for was almost here. She greeted the guest warmly, wearing the same friendly smile everyone knew her for, but her mind remained focused on the task ahead. Soon the time would come for her to toast the moment when all the secrets would be dragged into the light. What no one knew, not even Emily, was that this plan of hers would spiral out of control, leading to a tragedy far worse than she could have imagined. Emily greeted each guest with a tight smile, her eyes constantly flicking toward the driveway, waiting for Chloe's arrival. When her sister finally showed up, bashfully late as always, a wave of rage surged through Emily, so intensely it nearly knocked the wind out of her. Chloe looked stunning, dressed in a flowing sundress, her carefree grin a jarring contrast to the storm brewing inside Emily. Brandon's reaction didn't escape Emily's notice either. His gaze lingered on Chloe a second too long, and his hug seemed just a bit too warm. Emily clenched her lemonade glass, her knuckles turning white, one of the few outward signs of the emotional hurricane swirling within her. Pieces were in place. Now it was just a matter of time. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the backyard, the family settled around the long dining table. The smells of grilled meat, fresh bread, and Martha Miller's famous apple pie filled the air. Laughter rippled through the gathering as wine flowed, loosening tongues and brightening cheeks. Emily sat at one end of the table with Brandon at the other, and Chloe strategically seated between them. She watched every interaction between them with razor-sharp focus, each fleeting glance, each touch of the hand as dishes were passed, and every quiet laugh they shared. The conversations around her ebbed and flowed, but Emily only half listened, forcing polite smiles and the occasional laugh while her mind ticked away, counting down to the moment she'd been waiting for. Her hand drifted toward her pocket, feeling the folder tucked inside a collection of evidence, waiting to detonate like a bomb. As dinner wrapped up and dessert was served, the tension inside Emily coiled tighter. Frank Miller, ever the observant one, leaned over and asked if she was feeling okay. Emily gave him a reassuring smile, blaming exhaustion from all the preparations. Brandon shot her a concerned glance from across the table, but he didn't press further. Chloe, on the other hand, seemed visibly uneasy, her laughter too loud and forced. She knocked over her wine glass, staining her dress, and kept sneaking guilty glances at Emily, as if sensing what was about to unfold. So Martha Miller started slicing the apple pie. Emily knew the moment had arrived. Slowly she stood, glass of wine in hand, and tapped gently with a spoon. The table fell silent, all eyes turning toward her, expecting one of her heartwarming speeches about love and family. But what they were about to witness would tear everything apart. Emily's voice was calm and measured, betraying none of the turmoil inside her. She began by thanking everyone for coming and for being part of the Thorne family tradition. She spoke of love, loyalty, and trust values that had defined their family for generations. Then her tone shifted. I've always believed in the strength of our family, she said, her eyes locking onto Brandon's. But sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who betray us in the worst ways. A heavy silence fell over the gathering. Brandon paled as the weight of her words sank in, and Chloe, seated between them, began to tremble. With deliberate calm, Emily reached into her pocket and pulled out the folder, Slowly, she laid it open, revealing the screenshots of messages, credit card statements, and photos that exposed Brandon and Chloe's affair. Her voice, now sharp and cold, detailed every lie, every secret meeting, and every betrayal. The table erupted with gasps of disbelief. Martha Miller's hand flew to her mouth, while Frank Miller's face turned beet red, anger boiling beneath the surface. Some of the younger children, sensing the tension, started to cry, while Laura Parker hurried to usher them inside, away from the chaos. Ethan Parker had to restrain Frank Miller as he lunged toward Brandon, ready to strike. Guests exchanged stunned whispers, some inching away from the table, uncertain whether to stay or leave. Brandon sat frozen, head in his hands while Chloe sobbed uncontrollably, mascara streaking down her cheeks. The betrayal was laid bare for everyone to see, and the perfect family image they had carefully maintained was shattered beyond repair. Emily remained standing, watching as her family unraveled before her eyes. A strange mix of vindication and sorrow washed over her. This was the moment she had planned, yet it felt emptier than she imagined. As the initial shock wore off, Brandon slowly stood, raising his hands in a desperate attempt to regain control of the situation. His usual charm failed him as he stammered, trying to explain, to justify, to minimize the damage. But Emily cut him off with a cold, unwavering voice. How long? She demanded, her gaze like steel. How long has this been going on? How could you both do this to me? Chloe, still sobbing, choked out a response between gasps. It started after I came back. I didn't mean for this to happen. The table dissolved into chaos as the confrontation escalated. Emily, Brandon, and Chloe were now locked in a heated shouting match, their voices overlapping in a storm of accusations, denials, and regrets. Family members looked on in stunned silence, witnessing the complete breakdown of a family they once thought was unshakable. The idyllic autumn gathering had turned into a nightmare, the scent of apple pie mingling with the bitterness of betrayal. And as Emily stood at the head of the table, surrounded by the wreckage of her once perfect life, she realized there was no going back. The truth was out, and the damage was done. What began as a plan for revenge had spiraled into something far darker than she could have ever anticipated. Brandon lashed out, accusing Emily of neglecting their marriage, saying she was more devoted to her students than to him. Emily fired back, listing all the sacrifices she had made to support him, the dream she had set aside, so he could pursue his career. Chloe, caught in the middle, swung between begging for forgiveness and justifying her actions. But she spoke of feeling lost, of finding comfort and connection with Brandon, that mistakes made during moments of weakness. Their words became weapons, cutting deeper with every accusation. Years of buried resentment erupted, dragging old wounds to the surface. Emily revealed she had long suspected Brandon of other affairs, admitting to her growing disillusionment with their life together. Brandon, his usual composure crumbling, confessed that he felt inadequate, always struggling under the pressure to live up to the Thorne family legacy. As their argument escalated, Frank Miller jumped between them, his booming voice cutting through the chaos. Enough, he shouted, forcing both Brandon and Emily to take a step back. For a brief moment, the tension eased, and the room fell into an uneasy silence. No one noticed Martha Miller slip away to the kitchen. When she returned, her usually gentle face twisted with rage, she had something hidden behind her back. But before anyone could react, Beatrice lunged at Chloe, swinging a heavy cast iron skillet. The pan connected with a sickening thud, hitting Chloe on the side of her head. Chloe collapsed instantly, blood pooling beneath her still body. The backyard exploded into chaos. Emily let out a gut-wrenching scream that shattered the stunned silence, while Brandon rushed to Chloe's side, cradling her limp form and yelling for someone to call an ambulance. Frank Miller wrestled the skillet from Beatrice's grasp as she stood motionless, staring in disbelief at what she had just done. Cousin Ethan Parker, pale and trembling, fumbled with his phone as he dialed 911. In the midst of the commotion, no one noticed Emily slip away from the gathering. Sirens blared in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Paramedics arrived and rushed to Chloe's side, working frantically to stabilize her before loading her into the ambulance. Durandon, his shirt stained with blood, insisted on riding with her, guilt and fear etched across his face. Meanwhile, police officers began cordoning off the area and separating family members for questioning. The shaken relatives gave conflicting accounts of what had happened, struggling to make sense of the night's events. Beatrice sat silently in the back of a police cruiser, her earlier rage replaced by a vacant, dazed expression.
As the paramedics sped toward Springfield General Hospital, a chilling realization began to spread through the group. Emily was missing. At first, they assumed she had gone with Chloe to the hospital, but a call to the medical staff confirmed that she wasn't there. Panic set in as the family and police searched the house and surrounding property, calling Emily's name with growing desperation. It was Ethan Parker who found her. Following a gut feeling, he made his way to the old boathouse by Lake Springfield, a short walk from the Thorne family home. Inside, he discovered Emily's lifeless body hanging from the rafters. A crumpled, tear-stained note was clenched in her hand, its writing barely legible. In her final words, Emily expressed overwhelming pain and betrayal. She apologized for the hurt she had caused, but couldn't hide the anger that had consumed her. She never intended for things to spiral into violence, never imagined her revelation would lead to such devastation. News of Emily's suicide spread quickly, casting a heavy cloud of grief over the family. Flashing emergency lights illuminated the backyard, revealing faces contorted with sorrow and regret. What was meant to be a joyful family gathering had become a nightmare. At the hospital, doctors fought to save Chloe's life, her condition critical due to the severe head trauma. So Brandon, confined to the waiting room, was left alone with the crushing weight of his actions and the tragedy they had caused. In just a few hours, the Thorne family had been torn apart by betrayal, violence, and death. Springfield, once known for its quiet charm, would never be the same after that night. The police investigation was swift and thorough. Martha Miller was arrested and charged with this aggravated assault. So despite her advanced age and previously spotless reputation, the brutality of her attack left little room for leniency. Brandon, though not directly involved in the violence, found himself under intense scrutiny. His affair with Chloe was seen as the spark that ignited the entire tragedy. In a rare legal move, he was charged with adultery, a crime still technically on the books in Wisconsin, though rarely prosecuted. More seriously, he was charged with reckless endangerment, given his role in setting the events in motion. When the trial began, the courtroom was packed with Springfield residents struggling to comprehend how the seemingly perfect Thorne family had fallen apart so spectacularly. Beatrice's trial was somber, with witnesses testifying to her previously kind and gentle nature. Despite these character references, she was sentenced to 5 years in prison for aggravated assault. However, due to her declining health and the unusual circumstances of the case, the judge allowed for the possibility of home confinement after 2 years, pending good behavior and psychological evaluation. Brandon, though spared from direct blame for Emily's death, did not escape punishment. Along with the charge of adultery, he was held accountable for reckless endangerment, given the undeniable link between his actions and the night's tragedy. The judge sentenced him to 3 years in prison, accompanied by mandatory psychological counseling and community service upon his release, an attempt to repair some of the damage he had caused. As the legal proceedings came to an end, the Thorne family retreated from public life, their once proud name now synonymous with scandal and heartbreak. The betrayal and violence had not only torn their family apart, but had also shaken the entire community's sense of trust and security. Springfield would never forget the night the Thorne family fell apart, a night that left scars on everyone it touched. The 2008 case in Miami, Florida left the community reeling, especially those close to Rachel Moore, a young, beautiful nurse. Rachel's warmth and dedication to her job quickly won over everyone she met. Her life took an unexpected turn when she crossed paths with David Johnson, a wealthy 50-year-old man. Despite their 30-year age difference, their relationship blossomed rapidly, leading to a grand wedding that many describe as fateful. But just days after their extravagant ceremony, the community was hit with shocking news Rachel had passed away suddenly. Her death left not only heartbreak in its wake, but also a flood of questions about what really happened to her. Rachel Moore, only 20 years old, stood as a shining example of hard work and perseverance. Growing up in a middle-class family, she understood early on the importance of education and effort. Even as a child, Rachel was known for being diligent, kind, and always ready to lend a hand. These qualities made her beloved by everyone around her and fueled her desire to achieve great things. By the time she entered high school, her academic excellence became apparent, consistently ranking among the top students in every class. Regardless of the subject, Rachel gave her best, showing a relentless drive that set her apart.
But her success wasn't just about good grades. Rachel also stood out because of her kindness and compassion. She actively participated in extracurricular activities, joining clubs, charities, and community projects, always ready to help those in need. As she grew older, Rachel's beauty became as striking as her intellect. With bright eyes, a gentle smile, and a natural grace, she turned heads wherever she went. Yet what truly made her captivating was her warm personality and sincere kindness. Everyone who met her felt the comfort of her genuine affection. Rachel's choice to pursue nursing wasn't random. It was a passion she had nurtured since childhood. Helping others brought her true happiness, and watching the people she cared for smile was the most rewarding part of her life. This calling shaped her future and led her to complete nursing school with flying colors. As a young nurse, she quickly became a rising star in the field, known for both her skills and her teamwork. Rachel was always willing to assist her colleagues, and her commitment to patient care earned admiration from everyone she worked with. To Rachel, being a nurse wasn't just a career, it was her purpose. Whenever she stepped into a hospital room, she didn't just bring treatment. She also brought hope and comfort. However, beneath her professional success, Rachel yearned for something more, a stable home and a loving family. Building a warm, nurturing family was her ultimate dream. Though many men tried to win her heart, Rachel longed for a mature, dependable partner who could provide the love and security she craved. In every way, Rachel was a rare combination of inner and outer beauty, an ideal woman with simple yet meaningful aspirations. On the other side of the story was David Johnson, a 50-year-old businessman with an impressive background. Raised in a middle-class Miami household with parents who valued education, David developed strong intellectual abilities early. His parents encouraged him to think independently, fostering his natural curiosity and sharp mind. David's interest in business became evident from a young age. After earning a degree in business, he quickly launched a career in finance, where his talent shone. With sharp instincts and quick decision-making skills, he climbed the professional ladder, diving into real estate, stocks, and other investments. By the time he was 30, David had built a fortune through his efforts, becoming a self-made millionaire. By 40, his success had grown even more, cementing his reputation in the business world. David wasn't just known for his financial achievements. He also held significant influence in social circles. He regularly attended charity galas and lavish events, becoming one of Miami's most prominent figures. Admired for his intelligence, leadership, and foresight, David was seen as a symbol of success and an inspiration to many aspiring entrepreneurs. However, behind the polished exterior of success and confidence, David battled inner struggles. Despite all his achievements, he carried a lingering sense of insecurity. The pressure to maintain his position in society weighed heavily on him, and he constantly worried that one small misstep could bring everything crashing down. The perfection he sought became a burden, leaving him trapped in a cycle of stress. David's wealth and status couldn't fill the emptiness he felt inside. Even with fame, power, and influence, he couldn't shake the loneliness that clung to him. Over the years, he buried these feelings under work and social engagements, but the sense of incompleteness never faded. Fate brought David and Rachel together one sunny afternoon on Miami Beach. Their meeting was unplanned, but it felt significant from the start. Despite the 30-year age gap, David, with his dignified presence, and Rachel, full of youthful energy, they found an unexpected connection that would change both their lives. The age gap between Rachel and David didn't seem to stop their connection from growing. What started as casual conversations and the exchange of everyday stories slowly developed into a close friendship. Initially, neither of them planned for it to turn into anything serious. David, with years of experience under his belt, was used to keeping personal relationships at a distance. Rachel, on the other hand, was carefree and simply enjoyed spending time with someone as intriguing as David. Strangely, their age and differences only deepened the attraction between them. David was drawn to Rachel's youthful energy and innocence, while Rachel felt safe and comforted by David's maturity and wisdom. Their casual chats by the beach soon turned into romantic moments. They spent evenings walking under the moonlight, shared intimate dinners, and opened up about their deepest emotions. So as time passed, their bond grew beyond friendship, and real feelings began to take root. However, as their relationship became more serious, David started showing signs of anxiety, something Rachel didn't immediately notice. He showered her with affection, but deep inside he was wrestling with insecurities. So David wasn't sure if he was ready for a new marriage at 50, especially with someone as young as Rachel. Things took an unexpected turn when Rachel discovered she was pregnant. The news left both of them in shock. Though Rachel loved David, the thought of becoming a mother at just 20 overwhelmed her. She also worried that David truly wanted to build a family with her. Unsure of how to tell him, Rachel kept the pregnancy to herself for a few days, carefully planning the right moment to break the news. When the time finally came, Rachel chose to be up front. While they were having dinner at an upscale restaurant, she looked David in the eye and told him she was pregnant. David's reaction was a long, unsettling silence, his face betraying his inner turmoil. Although he tried to maintain a calm demeanor, the tension was hard to miss. The thought of fatherhood and how it would alter both their lives filled him with even more doubt. David knew that marrying Rachel was the sensible thing to do, but deep inside he couldn't help but feel that everything was moving too quickly. He cared deeply for her, but he questioned if his love was strong enough to withstand the challenges that lay ahead. Sensing his unease, Rachel tried to reasure him. She told him they could overcome anything together, that their love would be the foundation for a happy family. With optimism, she urged David to believe that they would be wonderful parents, and that this was a fresh start for both of them. Despite her encouragement, David remained uneasy. He agreed to marry Rachel, but his heart carried a lingering sense of dread. His distant stares and pensive moments revealed his struggle to balance his sense of responsibility with the fear of the unknown. Although David put on a brave face, it was clear that he was grappling with deep-seated doubts. So after dating for a few months, Rachel and David decided to tie the knot, surprising many due to their significant age difference. As the wedding day approached, Rachel was filled with excitement, eagerly looking forward to starting a new chapter with David. In contrast, David's mood grew heavier, weighed down by inner conflict. Even though he knew that marrying Rachel was the right thing to do, especially with a baby, on the way his anxiety became more visible with each passing day. The wedding was held at a luxurious seaside resort, the same place where they had first met. Rachel dazzled in her white wedding gown, her radiant beauty captivating everyone present. With a bright smile, she held tightly to David's hand as they made their way through the ceremony. However, those close to David noticed something was off. From the moment the ceremony began, David's behavior seemed strange. He fidgeted with his tie, glanced nervously around the venue, and often appeared lost in his thoughts. When guests approached to congratulate him, his responses were stiff, his smiles forced and awkward. Yalta friends and family found David's behavior puzzling. They dismissed it as pre-wedding jitters. But as the priest led them through their vows, David's nervousness became even more apparent. His hands trembled, his voice wavered, and his eyes darted to the crowd as if searching for a way out. Yet there was no escape. David knew that he had to follow through, even though his heart wasn't fully in it. Rachel, despite being overjoyed, couldn't help but notice David's strange demeanor. She gently squeezed his hand, hoping to offer him some comfort. But instead of calming him, her efforts seemed to heighten his anxiety. Confused, she tried to convince herself that everything would be fine once they started their life together. After the ceremony, as friends and family celebrated with cheers and toasts, David's unease remained. While others clinked glasses and embraced the couple, David stood stiffly, offering only a vacant stare and a strained smile. His odd behavior didn't go unnoticed. Guests began whispering, sensing that something was not right. Deep down, David knew that he wasn't ready for this marriage. He felt cornered by the weight of social expectations and Rachel's pregnancy, leaving him with no real choice but to move forward. Despite his outward compliance, the heavy burden of responsibility couldn't ease his inner turmoil. What should have been the happiest day of their lives turned into a deeply stressful one for David. As the wedding ceremony ended and the guests departed, David let out a sigh of relief, but the heavy weight in his heart lingered. His mind raced with questions. Was marrying Rachel the right decision? Could he handle the responsibilities that came with it? Or had he made a hasty choice that would haunt him forever? These troubling thoughts overshadowed what should have been a joyful beginning. So the days following their wedding, instead of being filled with happiness, became tense and unsettling. From the moment they closed the door to their bridal suite, the atmosphere between them felt heavy with unspoken emotions. Suppressed feelings which they had ignored throughout their courtship began to surface. In just one day of living together, small disagreements arose, turning into conflicts. Rachel, with her hopeful outlook and dreams of a perfect marriage, struggled to understand David's sudden coldness. She felt hurt and confused, realizing that the man she had married seemed distant, no longer displaying the care and affection he once had. David, overwhelmed by the burdens of marriage and Rachel's expectations, felt trapped. Small arguments would spark from seemingly trivial things the wrong word, a tense glance, or even uncomfortable silences. Their different perspectives on life soon became evident. Rachel longed for a warm family life where she could step into her role as a wife and prepare for motherhood. She expected David to share in her hopes for the future, to dream alongside her. But David, emotionally unstable and mentally unprepared, found it impossible to meet her expectations. To him, the marriage had come too fast, leaving him with no time to adjust. The first serious argument
erupted when David, in a moment of weakness, admitted his fears and doubts about their future.
Already feeling fragile from the rapid changes in her life,
Rachel reacted emotionally.
She felt betrayed,
realizing that David had kept his true thoughts from her all along.
The tension between them
grew with each conversation, making things worse instead of better.
Within just 3 days
of their marriage,
David found himself suffocating in a situation he had never truly wanted. What started as a thrilling attraction had quickly turned into a burden. Each day, the pressure of his new life only added to his sense of confinement.
Once a confident, successful man, David was now consumed by anxiety and dark thoughts.
He began to realize
that the only way to reclaim his old life was to take drastic action.
At first, the thought of harming Rachel flickered briefly in his mind, an unsettling notion he tried to dismiss.
But the idea grew, transforming into a plan that seemed to him like the only solution.
David knew that.
Unless he acted, he would be trapped in a marriage he didn't want for the rest of his life.
He began meticulously researching how he could make Rachel's death appear accidental. Knowing she had no medical history of heart issues,
he needed a way to create the illusion of a sudden, natural death.
His search led him to a drug capable of causing what would appear to be a heart attack,
leaving no obvious trace behind.
After weighing all the risks, he settled on using an embolic substance of poison that, when administered in the right dosage, could mimic a heart
attack in a healthy person.
David thought through every detail,
ensuring that Rachel's death would seem like a tragic, unforeseen event.
He knew he needed to act calmly,
maintaining the image of a loving husband to avoid arousing any suspicion.
In the days leading up to his plan,
he behaved more affectionately toward Rachel than usual, even trying to show her more care and attention.
He dissolved the poison into a glass of water
that he left on her bedside table,
knowing she would likely
wake in the middle of the night and drink it. As expected, Rachel stirred from sleep, unaware of the danger, and drank the poisoned water.
Moments later, the effects of the poison began to take hold.
Rachel's breathing became strained, and her body began to convulse.
David remained
perfectly still,
pretending to be oblivious
to her distress.
He listened as her
breaths grew more labored, her body shaking violently, but he did nothing.
He knew that if everything
went as planned,
she
would soon take her last breath,
and no one would be able to uncover the truth behind her sudden death. Within minutes,
Rachel stopped breathing.
In the silence of the night, David sat motionless beside her,
ensuring that she was gone.
He stayed there for a
gathering
moment,
for what came next.
With trembling hands,
he reached for his phone and dialed the police, carefully crafting his voice to sound panicked.
She's not breathing. My wife,
Rachel, she's not breathing.
David spoke in a
voice filled with false urgency,
trying to mimic the shock of a husband discovering a terrible tragedy.
Please, come quickly.
The police responded
immediately,
arriving at the house
within minutes.
David's calm yet
calculated plan was now in motion.
What that remained was for him to act the part of the devastated husband,
concealing the dark truth beneath a mask of grief.
When officers arrived at the home where Rachel Moore had suddenly passed away,
a cold, eerie silence greeted them,
as if the very air had absorbed the weight of death.
Pretending to be a grieving husband, tried to explain his wife's sudden demise.
However, something about his strangely composed demeanor unsettled a few officers
who sensed that something wasn't quite right.
When the medical examiner
performed an autopsy,
a small amount of an unfamiliar substance
was found in Rachel's system. Although it wasn't enough to immediately confirm foul play, it planted the first.
Seeds of suspicion
in the investigators' minds. They widened their investigation, conducting a thorough search of the house and interviewing people connected to the couple.
Yet in the early days,
no conclusive evidence emerged.
As they dug deeper, investigators noticed inconsistencies in David's behavior. While he appeared distressed,
there were moments when his calmness seemed too deliberate,
as if he was trying
hard to mask something.
This unusual behavior
prompted the police to shift their focus to David.
As they scrutinized his actions
leading up to Rachel's death, troubling new details came to light.
One of the first red flags was David's recent purchase of a large amount of sleeping pills. Initially, this seemed unimportant, but when investigators connected it to the foreign substance found in Rachel's body, it raised serious concerns.
David failed to provide a reasonable explanation for buying such a large quantity,
intensifying suspicions that the pills might have played a role in
Rachel's death.
Digging further into David's activities,
the police discovered that he had contacted a shady source to acquire illegal substances.
Their investigation revealed that he had obtained an embolic agent, a chemical capable of causing what would appear to be a heart attack,
leaving no visible traces.
The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together. David had carefully staged Rachel's death to look like a natural heart attack,
but his careless actions had exposed his plan.
With mounting evidence,
the police confronted David for further questioning.
At first, David stuck
to his story, insisting that Rachel's death was a tragic accident and that he had nothing to do with it. However, under the intense pressure of the interrogation and with the evidence stacking up against him, David began to crack. The calm, composed facade he had maintained started to crumble, revealing his growing anxiety.
Unable to withstand the pressure,
David admitted part of the truth.
He claimed he had bought the sleeping pills only to help Rachel relax, but he denied giving her anything harmful.
His partial confession did little to convince the police,
With the evidence they had
gathered receipts for the pills, traces of the drug found in Rachel's body, and suspicious financial transactions, the investigators were certain that David had orchestrated her death.
When the police arrived at
David's home to place him under arrest, his face was etched with fear and exhaustion. The stress of maintaining his lies had taken its toll, and now there was no way out. The house, which had been the setting for their brief marriage, had become the scene of a tragic crime. Rachel's death was no longer a mystery. The truth was coming to light, but it offered little comfort to those who mourned her.
David's trial in late
2008 captured public attention.
Once celebrated as a wealthy,
successful businessman, David now stood in the court to answer for his horrific actions. From the outset, the courtroom was charged with tension as the prosecution laid out its case against him.
The prosecutor built a
compelling narrative, presenting evidence that David had methodically planned Rachel's murder. They introduced receipts for the large quantities of sleeping pills,
autopsy results
showing traces of poison,
and financial records that pointed to David's suspicious activities in the days leading up to Rachel's death.
Testimonies from people close to the couple revealed the strained relationship between David and Rachel, painting a chilling picture of premeditated murder.
Witnesses testified
about David's strange behavior before and after Rachel's death, further solidifying the prosecution's argument. As the trial progressed, the weight of the evidence became too much for David to bear. His once confident demeanor gave way to visible signs of stress and defeat.
Finally, under the crushing weight of the facts,
David broke down and confessed. In a moment of grim silence, he admitted that Rachel's death was not an accident, but the result of a calculated plan he had devised to free himself from a marriage he never wanted. The courtroom sat in stunned disbelief as the cruel truth unraveled before them.
Once seen as a symbol of success and
ambition, David was now exposed as a murderer, undone by his own fears and selfishness.
The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
A punishment not just for the crime, but as a warning about the destructive power of greed and deception.
So the trial came to an end.
David left the courtroom silent, knowing that he would spend the rest of his life behind bars, haunted by the guilt of what he had done. To the story of David Johnson and Rachel Moore became a sobering reminder that even the most carefully crafted lies will eventually unravel, revealing the truth in the most unforgiving way.
Welcome to
True Crime Cases.
Today we dive into a tragic story that involves love, obsession, and murder in the quiet town of Tifton, Georgia. Jack Monroe, 49, was a well-known and well-liked figure in this small southern town. He ran Tanner's Hardware, a family-owned store that had been serving the locals for over 20 years. The shop was more than
just a business, it was a cornerstone of the community. Whether someone needed a simple screwdriver or advice on a home repair, Jack was always behind the counter, offering his friendly smile and lending a helping hand.
To those around him,
Jack's life seemed like a dream.
He was married to Anna Monroe,
48, his high school sweetheart. The two were deeply involved in their community, often participating in church events and charitable causes. On the surface, their marriage appeared rock solid, and Jack was regarded as a loving husband and devoted citizen. But behind closed doors, things were far from perfect.
Jack had started a secret relationship
with Chloe Turner, an 18-year-old high school senior known for her beauty and intelligence. Chloe had been a regular visitor to Tanner's Hardware, and what began as friendly conversations soon developed into something far more dangerous. Jack found himself trapped between his conscience and his desire, knowing what he was doing was wrong, but unable to stop himself. The affair became intense, emotionally overwhelming him.
So the holiday season approached.
Jack grew increasingly conflicted. He felt torn between his guilt over betraying Anna and the powerful emotions he had for Chloe. His mind was in turmoil, and he began to struggle with keeping up the appearance of a happy, dedicated husband.
By December 2019,
just before Christmas, Jack's behavior took a noticeable turn. He became distant, spending more time at work and less time at home.
Anna noticed the change, but assumed it was the pressure of running the business during the busy holiday rush. Friends and neighbors also picked up on Jack's unusual behavior.
He wasn't as cheerful as usual, and something seemed to be troubling him.
No one suspected the storm
that was about to unfold, a storm that would shatter the peace of the sleepy town.
On the morning of December 22nd, 2019, Tifton was quiet as most people were busy with last-minute holiday preparations. Around 9 a.m.,
Anne returned home from Sunday service at First Baptist Church, where she had helped set up for the Christmas Eve event.
She was surprised to see
Jack's truck parked in the driveway.
He had mentioned needing to pick up supplies for the store,
so it was strange that he was already home.
As Anna walked into their house on Bride Street,
the scent of pine from their freshly decorated Christmas tree filled the air. The tree twinkled with colorful lights, and carefully wrapped gifts sat underneath, some with her name written on them. Yet the house was unusually quiet. When she called out to Jack, there was no answer.
As she entered the living room,
Anna froze in horror. Jack lay on the floor near the base of the tree, surrounded by broken ornaments and shimmering tinsel. His head was smashed, blood pooling around him, staining the decorations. A hammer lay nearby, covered in blood. Sight was overwhelming, a horrific blend of holiday joy and gruesome violence.
Anna collapsed to her knees,
trembling as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing.
Her heart raced, but she
forced herself to stay calm, just long enough to call 911.
Oh my God, my husband
isn't breathing, there's blood everywhere.
She cried, her voice shaking with panic as tears
streamed down her face.
The 911
operator tried to soothe her, advising her not to touch anything and to wait outside for the police and paramedics.
Within minutes, the quiet street came alive with flashing lights as emergency vehicles pulled up.
And neighbors peeked out from their windows, whispering among themselves, trying to guess what had happened. Anna sat in the daze on the front porch, struggling to grasp how everything had changed in an instant.
The Tifton Police
Police Department responded swiftly to Anna's call. Leading the investigation was Detective Nora Collins, a seasoned officer with over 15 years on the force. And known for her sharp instincts and thorough investigative skills, Collins had earned the respect of her colleagues and the fear of those who found themselves on the wrong side of the law.
When Detective Collins
arrived at the scene, the contrast between the cheerful Christmas decorations and the brutal reality inside struck her immediately. She stepped into the living room where the Christmas lights blinked softly, reflecting off shattered ornaments scattered across the floor. Jack's lifeless body lay near the tree, his head crushed by repeated blows from the hammer lying nearby. Blood had splattered across the room, soaking wrapping paper and ribbons, turning festive decorations into grim reminders of the violence that had occurred.
Collins took in the scene
methodically, her mind already piecing together possible scenarios. The hammer, still resting next to Jack's body, was carefully collected as evidence. What stood out to Collins was the eerie stillness of the scene. Apart from the scattered ornaments around the tree, there were no signs of a struggle. So it was as if Jack had been caught completely off guard, attacked without warning.
The forensic team
arrived shortly after Collins, led by Dr. Eric Shaw, a meticulous medical examiner known for his attention to detail. His expertise would prove essential in unraveling the events of that fateful morning.
Dr. Wong carefully
examined Jack's body, focusing on the severe trauma to his head, which indicated an instant death.
Based on the condition of rigor
Wong
mortis,
estimated that Jack had died sometime between 1 p.m. and midnight the previous night.
Detective Collins instructed her team to collect
every bit of evidence they could find.
They dusted for fingerprints,
took photographs, and searched the house thoroughly for anything that might lead them to the person responsible.
Collins sat down with Anna Monroe,
still in a state of shock, to gather details about her day and Jack's activities leading up to the tragedy.
As Collins pieced together
the scene, she began to suspect this might be a crime of passion. The level of violence suggested strong emotions, perhaps anger or jealousy, had fueled the attack. But the biggest question remained, who hated Jack Monroe enough to kill him in such a vicious manner? Collins was determined to find out.
But firstly brought her to
Chloe Turner,
the 18-year-old high school senior
who had secretly been involved with Jack. Chloe was well liked at school and had a reputation for excelling in extracurriculars, particularly the drama club. She had recently played Tiny Tim in a local production of A Christmas Carol and impressed many with her performance. But beneath her seemingly bright exterior, Chloe was emotionally fragile, a trait that had become more noticeable in recent months.
Chloe lived with her mother,
Sarah Turner, in a modest but well-kept home on the edge of town. Sarah had a reputation for being controlling, especially when it came to Chloe's looks. Her obsession with appearances intensified after Chloe's father had come out as gay and left the family, leaving a strained dynamic between mother and daughter.
When Detective Collins arrived at the Kelly residence on the afternoon of December 22nd,
she found Chloe still in her pajamas, curled up in her room.
Chloe seemed deeply shaken by the news of Jack's death. Her room looked like a typical
teenager space, filled with posters of Taylor Swift and Ariana Grande. But Collins quickly noticed troubling details. A framed photo of Jack shirtless sat on Chloe's nightstand, and her journals contained explicit entries describing their relationship in unsettling detail.
During the initial questioning,
Chloe cooperated but quickly became emotional when the conversation turned to her involvement with Jack. She admitted to having an affair with him and described how they had grown close over the past year. Chloe said she had fallen deeply in love with Jack, even fantasizing about a future together. But as Christmas neared, she noticed a change in Jack. He seemed distant, and Chloe feared he was planning to end their relationship.
When Collins pressed Chloe
about her whereabouts on the night of the murder, the teenager hesitated. She eventually claimed she had been home alone, studying for her final exams.
However, the flimsy alibi in Chloe's emotional outbursts raised suspicions.
Her hands trembled as she spoke, and she seemed to teeter between guilt and grief, though Collins couldn't tell which emotion was stronger.
As the interview continued, Chloe's mood shifted. She became defensive, insisting that she had nothing to do with Jack's death. In a sudden twist, she introduced a strange element to her story, a man named Tom. Chloe claimed Tom had pressured her into continuing the affair with Jack, threatening to harm her if she didn't comply. But when Collins asked for more details about this mysterious Tom, Chloe grew evasive and appeared confused, as if the story itself didn't make sense even to her. So despite Chloe's strange behavior, Collins wasn't fully convinced by her story, Chloe's emotional instability, obsession with Jack, and weak alibi
made her a top suspect.
Collins knew she needed more solid evidence
before making an arrest. The investigation into Chloe was far from over, and Collins vowed to uncover the truth.
The next person on Collins' list was Anna Monroe,
Jack's wife of 25 years. Anna was well known in Tifton for her involvement in community activities and her active participation in church events. She was always warm and approachable, greeting neighbors with a smile and often hosting gatherings at her home.
However, Collins suspected that beneath Anna's friendly demeanor,
there were hidden emotions that might provide crucial insights.
In recent years,
Anna had grown suspicious of Jack's faithfulness.
Although she stayed busy
preparing for Christmas and helping with events at the First Baptist Church, a sense of unease had crept into her mind. Jack's frequent absences didn't sit right with her.
He often excused his time away as work-related or part of his church commitments, but Anna couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. When Detective Collins interviewed Anna on December 22nd, the grief-stricken wife sat at the kitchen table, visibly shaken by the morning's events.
Anna spoke candidly about her marriage, describing Jack as a loving husband, though she admitted their relationship had grown distant over time. Their intimacy had faded, especially after their son, Rifle, left for college.
Anna then made a painful
confession she had long suspected Jack was having an affair. After Jack repeatedly rejected Anna's attempts to reconnect intimately, her suspicions deepened, though she had no concrete proof. As Anna recounted the strain this had placed on their relationship, particularly in recent months, tears welled in her eyes. Detective Collins gently pressed her for more details about the night of Jack's murder. Anna explained that she had spent the evening at home preparing for the next day's church service and had gone to bed early, assuming Jack would join her later. When she awoke in the middle of the night and realized he wasn't beside her, she figured he had fallen asleep in the living room. It wasn't until the next morning that she discovered the horrific truth.
Although Anna's story was
simple and consistent, Collins couldn't ignore the possibility that her husband's suspected infidelity might have driven her to commit murder. The brutal nature of the crime hinted at a personal motive. And as Jack's wife, Anna had both the opportunity and a possible reason to kill him. However, her grief seemed genuine, and she fully cooperated with the investigation, answering all of Collins' questions without hesitation. She even granted access to Jack's personal items, including his phone and computer, without resistance. So Collins knew that emotions could cloud judgment, and she wasn't ready to dismiss Anna as a suspect just yet. She made a mental note to keep a close eye on every detail of Anna's account as the investigation progressed.
The next person Collins
Collins needed to speak with was Sarah Turner, Chloe Turner's mother. Sarah had a reputation in Tifton for her controlling nature and perfectionist tendencies. Known for maintaining an immaculate home and placing immense pressure on her daughter, Sarah's behavior only intensified after her husband left her upon revealing that he was gay. Despite her involvement in community events and church activities, Sarah's primary focus was always her daughter, Chloe.
The relationship between
Sarah and Chloe had always been tense. Chloe, young and beautiful, represented everything Sarah feared her daughter's blossoming sexuality was something she tried to suppress. Sarah controlled every aspect of Chloe's life, from what she wore to interacting with. It was no secret in town that Sarah's expectations for her daughter were impossibly high, and she often resorted to harsh discipline when Chloe didn't meet them. One unsettling rumor even suggested that Sarah would spank Chloe if she thought her daughter was attracting too much male attention.
On December 23rd,
the day after Jack Monroe's death, Collins arrived at the Kelly residence to interview Sarah. The home was meticulously decorated for Christmas, complete with a perfectly trimmed tree and a nativity scene displayed on the mantel. Sarah greeted Collins with a calm, composed demeanor, seemingly unaffected by the tragedy that had just shaken the town. However, beneath her polite exterior, Collins sensed a quiet tension.
When Collins asked
Sarah about her thoughts on Jack Monroe, she responded with distant politeness, describing him as a good man and a respected member of the community. But the conversation grew more strained when the focus shifted to Chloe. Sarah admitted that she had been upset with her daughter's behavior in recent weeks. She mentioned, with disapproval, that Chloe had started wearing makeup and bras a shift that Sarah found inappropriate. Collins then carefully broached the topic of Chloe's relationship with Sarah's composed exterior cracked for just a moment, revealing a flicker of discomfort. She denied knowing about the affair, but her frustration with Chloe was evident. Sarah confessed that she had noticed her daughter dressing provocatively, saying in a cold tone she's been parroting around like a little prostitute. Sarah claimed that she had tried to confront Chloe about it, but her daughter brushed her off, insisting that everything was fine.
Detective Collins couldn't dismiss
the possibility that Sarah's obsessive need to control Chloe, combined with the scandal of the affair could have been a powerful motive for murder. Sarah might have seen the relationship between her daughter and an older man as a threat to her carefully maintained image. However, throughout the interview, Sarah remained calm and collected, showing no signs of guilt or remorse. Though she was polite and cooperative, Sarah offered little helpful information. As Collins left the Kelly home, she knew she couldn't cross Sarah off her list of suspects just yet.
With each person Collins
spoke to, the investigation became more complicated. Motives and secrets began to surface, but without solid evidence, the pieces of the puzzle remained scattered.
Then, on December 24th,
just one day before Christmas, a breakthrough occurred. That morning, the weather was cold and dreary in Tifton, with temperatures hovering around 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Determined to find any missed clues, Collins and her team returned to the Tanner residence for another sweep of the crime scene. As they meticulously searched the house, an officer made a strange discovery near the fireplace.
Among the neatly wrapped
Christmas
gifts,
a small torn piece of paper was found partially tucked under the edge of a rug. The note appeared to be handwritten, though most of it was missing. Only a fragment remained legible, but what it revealed was enough to catch Collins' attention.
Dirty Boy, meet me at
1 p.m. MK.
The initials MK immediately stood out Chloe Turner. The time written on the note matched the estimated window of Jack's death,
placing Chloe even closer to the crime.
Detective Collins realized that the torn note could be the key piece of evidence linking Chloe Turner directly to the murder.
She immediately ordered a forensic analysis to confirm if the handwriting matched Chloe's. The note was sent to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation in Atlanta for further examination. Meanwhile, Collins and her team returned to Chloe's house to search for more evidence that could connect her to the crime.
In Chloe's bedroom,
they found a notebook hidden beneath her mattress.
The notebook contained troubling entries detailing her obsession with Jack Monroe.
It also included graphic descriptions of their secret encounters and plans to meet. One particular entry, dated December 22nd, matched the time and place referenced in the note found at the Tanner residence. This discovery was critical. Chloe's writings not only placed her at the scene of the murder, but also revealed a dangerous motive fueled by jealousy and obsession.
With this breakthrough,
the case was starting to take shape. Back at the station, the forensic report confirmed that the handwriting on the note matched Chloe's. This solid evidence made Chloe the prime suspect in Jack Monroe's murder.
Determined to get to the truth,
Detective Collins brought Chloe for another round of questioning.
During the second interrogation, Chloe changed her story. She claimed that Tom, an imaginary lover, had manipulated her for years. According to Chloe, Tom was a high-ranking politician involved in dark rituals and sinister practices. She insisted that he had forced her to stay in a relationship with Jack and eventually ordered her to kill him. Collins, however, saw through the lies. When the detective presented the overwhelming evidence, the matching handwriting, the obsessive journal entries, and Chloe's weak alibi, Chloe shifted her story again. This time, she claimed that Tom wasn't a real person, but a voice in her head. She said she had been suffering from a mental illness, insisting she wasn't in control of her actions on the night of the murder. However, the detectives were unconvinced, suspecting that Chloe was using mental illness as a cover for her crime. On December 26, 2019, Chloe Turner was officially arrested for the murder of Jack Monroe. She was eerily calm as officers handcuffed her and led her away. The residents of Tifton were stunned. How could a young woman with so much potential commit such a terrible act? While Jack's family felt some relief that justice was served, the law still weighed heavily on them, especially during the holiday season. Chloe's trial began in early February 2020, captivating the small town. The courtroom was packed as locals followed the case closely. District Attorney Michael Harlow, known for his direct style, led the prosecution. Whitman argued that Chloe's obsession with Jack had driven her to murder when he tried to end their affair. He described how she had planned the crime, even bringing the hammer with the intent to use it. On the other side, Chloe's defense attorney, Lisa Drew, took a different approach. Known for her sharp legal mind and compassionate arguments, Blackwell claimed that Chloe had suffered a psychotic breakdown. She argued that Chloe's difficult family life and the emotional pressure of the secret relationship had pushed her over the edge. Blackwell painted Chloe as a vulnerable young woman manipulated by an older man, ultimately leading to a tragic outcome. Throughout the trial, Jack's family sat silently in the front row, their faces marked by grief. The details of Jack's affair were painful to hear, adding a layer of betrayal to their sorrow. But even so, their focus remained on the loss of a husband, father, and friend. After several days of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. On February 18,
2020, Chloe Turner was found guilty of second-degree murder. The judge sentenced her to 25 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 15 years. The sentence drew mixed reactions. Some felt it was too lenient given the brutality of the crime, while others thought it was appropriate, considering Chloe's age and mental state.
For Jack's family,
the end of the trial brought a sense of closure, but the pain remained. So the absence of their loved one, especially during the holiday season, was a wound that time could not easily heal. If no one to carry on the business, the family decided to close Tanner's Hardware for good, ending an era for the town.
Chloe Turner was transferred to
a state prison to begin her sentence.
Despite her earlier
claims of mental illness, psychiatric evaluations found no evidence of schizophrenia or any other disorder to explain her actions. Isolated, and without many visitors, Chloe's once bright future faded into the grim reality of prison life.
Anna Monroe, Jack's widow, struggled to come to terms with the double life her husband had led.
Learning about his affair with an 18-year-old girl was a heavy burden to bear. Despite the support from her church community, Anna withdrew from public life. She eventually sold the family home and moved to a nearby town, hoping to leave behind the painful memories.
Sir Turner also faced
the fallout from the scandal.
The shame Chloe's crime
brought on her family was overwhelming, and the iron grip Sarah had once held over her daughter's life was gone. She became an outcast in the community, blamed by many for Chloe's downfall. Sarah, too, retreated from public life, avoiding the judgmental glances of neighbors.
For the residents of
Tifton, the events of December 2019 served as a grim reminder that even the tightest communities have secrets festering beneath the surface. So that year's Christmas was a somber one, with Jack Monroe's murder casting a dark shadow over the holiday spirit.
Although life in Tifton
slowly returned to normal, the story of Jack Monroe and Chloe Turner became one of the town's darkest chapters, a tale that will be remembered for years to come.
If you found this case
intriguing, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more real-life crime stories. What do you think was Chloe's Clinton's affair? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll make sure to read them. Until next time, stay safe and cherish the life you have, because you only get one.
On the afternoon of March 15, 2022,
around 1 p.m.,
Ryan Brooks
stumbled upon a horrifying scene. As he stepped into their bedroom, he found his wife, Lena, lying lifeless on the bed, stripped of her clothing.
Lena had been strangled with her own underwear.
Panic surged through Ryan's veins as he shakily grabbed his phone and dialed 911. When the operator answered, Ryan's voice trembled with shock as he tried to explain, "My wife, she's not breathing. I think she's dead," he stuttered, overwhelmed by fear and disbelief.
The operator kept Ryan on the line,
asking questions to gather information while dispatching emergency responders to the house. Minutes later, sirens echoed through the typically quiet neighborhood of Oakwood Drive. Paramedics rushed into the home with a sense of urgency. But once inside, they confirmed the worst. Lena was gone.
Lena Brooks, 41,
had been a beloved school teacher at Ellis Elementary School in Savannah, Georgia. She was admired for her kindness and dedication to her students.
She and Ryan lived in a
beautiful home in Artsy Park, and Lena had always been a beacon of warmth in the community. A graduate of the University of Georgia, she had spent nearly 2 decades shaping young minds and actively participating in her community.
Lena's life outside of
teaching was just as fulfilling. She was an active member of her local church, often volunteering for events and programs, and a member of a Thursday evening book club where she enjoyed discussing mystery novels, especially those by Agatha Christie. Her family was incredibly close-knit. Her parents, James and Margaret Collins, lived nearby and visited frequently. Though Lena and Ryan didn't have children, they were devoted to their niece, Jenny, who lived in the same neighborhood.
Just days before her tragic death,
Lena had been planning a weekend getaway to Tybee Island with Ryan, hoping to celebrate their 17th wedding anniversary and reconnect during a period of tension in their relationship. She had no idea that the joyful anticipation of that trip would be cut short by tragedy.
The police arrived quickly, led
by Detective Linda Martinez and her partner, Detective John Harris. Detective Martinez, known for her keen attention to detail, immediately began assessing the scene, while Harris, recognized for his sharp instincts, took charge of interviewing Ryan. Harris gently guided Ryan outside to the porch, asking him where he had been the night before. Ryan explained that he had been out of town on a business trip and had discovered Lena's body upon returning. His voice was soft, barely above a whisper, filled with sorrow and confusion.
Meanwhile, Inside the house,
Meanwhile,
Detective Martinez
inside the house, Detective Martinez taking in every detail of the disheveled bedroom. Two champagne flutes were on the floor. An unopened bottle sat on the dresser. And a bucket of melted ice was nearby. The satin nightgown was draped over a lamp. And the bed looked like it had been hastily abandoned. Lena's naked body lay on the bed, her underwear cruelly tied around her neck, her face showing signs of a violent struggle. The scene was both tragic and terrifying.
With no signs of forced entry,
it became clear that Lena likely knew her attacker. What had started as a romantic evening had clearly turned deadly.
The autopsy would soon reveal
further details, but the detectives knew they couldn't overlook a single clue.
Detective Martinez
meticulously gathered evidence, lifting fingerprints from various surfaces, hoping one would lead them to a suspect. Meanwhile, Detective Harris captured every angle of the crime scene with detailed photographs, ensuring no piece of evidence would be missed.
The panties used to
strangle Lena were carefully bagged for further analysis. And DNA samples were taken from under Lena's nails, suggesting she had fought back against her attacker.
Outside, a forensic team
had arrived and began their work, scanning the bedroom with special lights to detect bodily fluids that could provide more clues. Hair samples and fibers were collected from the bed and surrounding area.
Every piece of evidence was a
critical part of the puzzle they were working to piece together.
As the day wore on, the neighborhood
began to gather outside, watching the scene unfold with horror and disbelief. Those who knew Lena were devastated, struggling to comprehend how something so horrific could happen to someone so full of kindness and life.
Detectives Martinez and Harris
continued their investigation with unwavering determination. They knew the only way to bring justice for Lena and her family was through a meticulous, methodical approach. As they worked tirelessly, their resolve grew stronger. Finding Lena's killer was their top priority.
The first person called in
for questioning was Ryan Brooks himself.
At 43,
Ryan was a successful real estate agent in Savannah, known for his charm and outgoing personality. He had built a solid reputation in the community, but now he was facing intense scrutiny as the detectives began to unravel the tragic events surrounding his wife's death.
Ryan Brooks was often described as the life of the party,
someone who could charm anyone he met. However, he also had a reputation for being vain and self-absorbed, always focused on keeping up his appearance. Despite these flaws, he was ambitious and well-regarded in the real estate industry. Detectives Martinez and Harris began questioning Ryan about where he had been on the night of Lena's murder. He told them he had been out of town, inspecting properties for work.
When asked for specifics,
Ryan explained that he had left the day before and spent the night in Atlanta, even offering hotel receipts and emails to back up his story. While this initially seemed like a solid alibi, Ryan's eagerness to prove his innocence raised red flags for the detectives. He was cooperative, but something about his behavior didn't sit right. He constantly insisted on his innocence without any prompting, and the detectives noted how he frequently checked his watch and fidgeted as he spoke. It struck them as odd that someone grieving the loss of their wife would be so focused on clearing their name.
Determined to dig deeper,
the detectives decided to check out Ryan's story in more detail. They reviewed security footage from the hotel in Atlanta where he claimed to have stayed.
The footage did show Ryan checking in on the afternoon of March 14, 2022. But things took a strange turn. About an hour later, someone wearing a hoodie and large sunglasses entered Ryan's room. This person whose face was
concealed stayed with Ryan until around 10 p.m. When they left, Ryan followed just a few minutes later. Outside in the parking lot, the two were seen kissing before parting ways and driving off in separate cars. Ryan didn't return to the hotel until early the next morning.
This raised even more questions.
Where had Ryan gone after leaving the hotel? And who was the mysterious person in the hoodie? As the detectives continued reviewing the footage, they identified the person as a young blonde woman. Who was she? And how was she connected to Ryan? More importantly, could she be involved in Lena's murder?
Further investigation revealed
even more discrepancies in Ryan's story. His work record showed that he had canceled all his business activities for March 14 and 15, contradicting his claim that he was in Atlanta for work. This lie, combined with his suspicious behavior, made Ryan the prime suspect in Lena's death. The detectives knew they needed more evidence, but it was clear that Ryan was hiding something crucial.
As the investigation continued,
another person entered the spotlight, Jimmy Reed, the blonde woman seen with Ryan in the hotel footage.
Jimmy was a striking
24-year-old personal trainer, known for her charm and dedication to fitness. Her beauty had made her popular with male clients, but she also had a reputation for getting too close to married men, sparking gossip in the community. Both Ryan and Lena had known Jimmy for some time, as Ryan had hired her as his personal trainer. She often visited their home for training sessions, making her a familiar face in their lives.
Detectives Martinez and Harris decided
it was time to question Jimmy. When she was brought in, Jimmy was calm and cooperative, showing no signs of distress. As the interrogation went on, it became clear that Jimmy and Ryan had been having an affair. Jimmy admitted to the relationship but denied any involvement in Lena's murder. Her cool, collected demeanor made the detectives uneasy. It was strange how unfazed she seemed while admitting to such a scandalous affair, especially given the circumstances surrounding Lena's death.
The detectives pressed Jimmy,
asking if she had any knowledge of Lena's murder or if she had played a part in it. She denied everything, insisting that her relationship with Ryan was nothing more than a fling and had nothing to do with Lena's tragic death. Despite her confident denials, the detectives weren't fully convinced. They decided to dig deeper into her background and look closely at her activities around the time of Lena's murder.
When the detectives followed up on Jimmy's alibi,
they found that her friends had confirmed she was with them on the night of the murder. However, something about their stories seemed too rehearsed, raising even more suspicions. To add to the intrigue, when the detectives obtained phone records for both Ryan and Jimmy, they uncovered numerous calls between them over the past few months. This regular contact between the two painted a picture that didn't look good for either of them. As the investigation moved forward, both Ryan and Jimmy remained persons of interest. Ryan's nervous eagerness to prove his innocence and Jimmy's almost perfect composure left the detectives with more questions than answers. The tangled web of relationships and possible motives made it clear that solving Lena's murder would be anything straightforward. Detectives Martinez and Harris knew they had to dig even deeper to find the truth behind this complex and brutal crime.
On March 18th,
On March 18th, 2022, just 3 days after Lena's body was discovered, a crucial piece of evidence came to light. Detective Martinez uncovered a series of emails between Ryan Brooks and Jimmy Reed. These emails not only revealed their affair but also contained suspicious comments about Lena. Though the emails didn't directly discuss harming Lena, there were unsettling hints. In one email, Ryan wrote to Jimmy, "I can't stop thinking about your young, tight body. I can't wait for the day when it's just you and me, every night." He added, Lena is definitely past her prime.
The detectives found these emails
on Ryan's laptop, which had been seized during the investigation. As Detective Martinez combed through the messages, one email from Jimmy stood out. It read, "You can have me all day long, but you need to take care of Lena first." Another email from Ryan ominously stated, "I'll handle it soon." These cryptic exchanges were enough to set off alarm bells for the detectives.
In addition to the emails, the
investigation revealed footage from a nearby park captured just days before Lena's murder. The footage showed Jimmy meeting with a man later identified as Ethan Taylor, a 23-year-old computer specialist known for his quiet nature and intelligence. Ethan was an active member of the local chess club and often worked late on complex computer projects. In the footage, Jimmy and Ethan were seen engaged in a serious conversation. At one point, they passed a small item between them, which the detectives believed could be crucial evidence. Before parting, they shared a long kiss, suggesting their relationship was more than just professional.
This new evidence hinted at a
larger conspiracy involving not only Ryan and Jimmy, but possibly Ethan as well. Detectives Martinez and Harris decided to bring Ethan in for questioning, suspecting that he might have played a role in either planning or executing the murder. Meanwhile, the digital evidence from Ryan's laptop continued to be analyzed for more clues that could piece together the puzzle. The investigation was taking a more complex turn as it became evident that Lena's murder wasn't just a crime of passion. It was a calculated act involving multiple people. The detectives were determined to get to the bottom of the plot and ensure everyone involved faced justice. As the investigation moved forward, the city of Savannah remained on edge, with the community anxiously following the unfolding details.
So when Ethan Taylor was brought in for questioning, he maintained a calm but evasive demeanor. When asked about his relationship with Jimmy and his meeting with her on March 12th,
Ethan claimed they had been discussing a work project. However, his answers were vague, and the detectives grew more suspicious. They pressed him for more information, but Ethan offered little, raising more doubts about his involvement.
The detectives decided to dig
deeper into Ethan's digital footprint, hoping to find more evidence. Their efforts paid off when they discovered that Ethan had been using his computer skills to hack into Ryan Brooks's financial records. Armed with this information, detectives Martinez and Harris confronted Ethan. They showed him the evidence of unauthorized access to Ryan's accounts, which caused Ethan's composed exterior to crack.
Under the pressure of the mounting
Ethan
evidence,
admitted to hacking into Ryan's financial records. At first, he denied being manipulated by Jimmy, but after more questioning, he finally confessed. Ethan revealed that Jimmy had seduced him, using their relationship as leverage to get him to hack Ryan's accounts. She had promised him more intimacy in exchange for his help. What shocked Ethan the most was learning that Jimmy had also been involved with Ryan. Feeling betrayed and angry, he shared how Jimmy had told him that she wanted to extort money from Ryan, claiming it was rightfully hers for all the hard work she had put into their relationship. Whenever Ethan pressed for more details, Jimmy would change the subject.
Ethan insisted he had no knowledge
of any plans to harm Lena. He appeared genuinely upset upon learning about her murder and claimed that he had no part in it. The detectives listened carefully, trying to determine whether Ethan was telling the truth, or if he was more involved in the crime than he let on. He continued to maintain that while he had helped Jimmy hack Ryan's accounts, he had no idea about any plot to kill Lena.
Ethan's confession added another
layer to the investigation. It revealed that Jimmy was willing to go to great lengths to get what she wanted, even if it meant manipulating Ethan into doing her dirty work. However, the detective still needed more evidence to confirm Ethan's role in the murder and to figure out if he had unknowingly been a part of a larger scheme. As the investigation pressed on, the community of Savannah closely followed the case, which was growing more complicated by the day. The pieces finally started coming together, pointing to a shocking truth: Ryan, under Jimmy's manipulation, had killed his wife,
Jimmy had used
Lena.
her charm and
Jimmy had used her charm and clever arguments to convince Ryan that the only way they could be together was if Lena was out of the picture. She warned Ryan that a divorce would ruin his reputation and career, and that he would have to share his wealth with Lena. Knowing how much Ryan valued his status and money, Jimmy preyed on his weaknesses, manipulating him into believing that killing Lena was his only option.
Jimmy's true nature became
glaringly evident as the investigation unfolded. She was driven by greed, willing to go to any lengths to get her hands on Ryan Brooks's money, regardless of the lives she ruined along the way. Detectives Martinez and Harris soon discovered that Jimmy had been plotting this for quite some time. She knew her beauty would lure Ryan in when they first met at a party. After being hired as his personal trainer, their affair quickly escalated. Ryan and Jimmy regularly met in secret, both at the house behind Lena's back and at various hotels for their passionate rendezvous. As the investigation progressed, the detectives uncovered even more damning text messages and emails between Ryan and Jimmy. These exchanges revealed how Jimmy methodically manipulated Ryan, convincing him that the only way to secure their future happiness was by eliminating Lena. Jimmy knew exactly how to exploit Ryan's vulnerabilities using flattery, promises of love, and the fear of losing his wealth to control him. She painted a fantasy of a perfect life together, one free from the problems Lena's presence supposedly caused.
Piece by piece, the detectives
gathered enough evidence to expose Jimmy as the mastermind behind the murder. By March 20th, 2022, they were ready to make arrests. Detectives Martinez and Harris first arrested Ryan Brooks at his sleek real estate office in downtown Savannah. Ryan was in the middle of a meeting when the detectives arrived, flashing their badges and informing him of his arrest for his wife's murder. Panic overtook Ryan. He stammered protests, insisting there had been some mistake, but his protests fell on deaf ears. As his employees and clients looked on in stunned silence, Ryan was handcuffed and escorted out of the building.
Next, the detectives arrested Jimmy,
the real puppeteer behind the crime. She had used her sexual allure and cunning manipulation to ensnare Ryan into carrying out the murder. Jimmy believed she had total control over Ryan and arrogantly dismissed any possibility that he could turn against her. But Jimmy's overconfidence in her ability to manipulate was her downfall. She underestimated how the pressure of the investigation would lead both Ryan and Ethan to expose her role.
Initially, Ryan was hesitant to
implicate Jimmy, but the detectives were strategic. They revealed that Jimmy had also been involved in a sexual relationship with Ethan Taylor and had used him to hack into Ryan's financial accounts. When Ryan realized how deeply he had been manipulated and betrayed, his resolve crumbled. Shaken by the gravity of what he had done, He confessed everything, including Jimmy's orchestration of the murder. Similarly,
overwhelmed by
Ethan,
guilt and fear,
overwhelmed by guilt and fear, admitted to being manipulated by Jimmy into committing cybercrimes, although he maintained that he had no idea a murder was part of the plan.
Jimmy's arrogance led to her
undoing.
The web of deceit she had carefully spun began to unravel as detectives pieced together the confessions of those she had manipulated.
Her greed, ruthlessness, and willingness to exploit those around her ultimately led to her capture. The detectives' relentless pursuit of the truth ensured that her criminal actions would come to light.
But the case didn't end with Jimmy and Ryan.
Detectives Martinez and Harris were also determined to bring Ethan Taylor to justice. Although Ethan claimed ignorance about the murder, his involvement in hacking Ryan's financial records made him an accomplice to Jimmy's scheme. With enough evidence in hand, the detective secured a warrant for Ethan's arrest. Ethan, too, was taken into custody for his role in the crime, though he continued to insist he had no knowledge of the plot to kill Lena.
Lena's family, heartbroken by her death,
found some small relief in the arrest. The news of Ryan's involvement shocked them to the core. But knowing that justice was being served brought a measure of closure. The revelation that Jimmy, a frequent visitor to the Harper Whore, had orchestrated the entire plot was even more devastating. The community of Savannah was equally stunned as more details emerged about the affair, manipulation, and betrayal at the heart of the case.
Detectives Martinez and
Harris remained steadfast in their commitment to ensure that everyone involved in Lena's murder faced the consequences. Their tireless investigation had paid off, but there was still more work to be done as the legal process moved forward. The people of Savannah, along with Lena's grieving family, hoped for a just outcome.
On December 5th, 2022,
the trial for Lena Brooks's murder began in Savannah, Georgia. The courtroom was filled with reporters, family members, and locals eager to hear the details of the case. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Sarah Bennett, a sharp 45-year-old attorney known for her firm stance on justice. Bennett argued that Ryan Brooks, under Jimmy Reed's manipulative influence, had killed his wife to avoid a messy divorce that would have destroyed his career and social standing. Bennett presented a strong case, backed by compelling evidence, including the incriminating emails between Ryan and Jimmy, hotel surveillance footage of their secret meetings, and phone records showing their constant communication. The prosecution worked to paint a clear picture of how Jimmy's manipulation led Ryan to believe that murder was his only option to escape his troubled marriage and be with Jimmy. The trial would reveal every sordid detail of the affair, the murder and the manipulation behind it, as the community of Savannah continued to grapple with the shocking betrayal that had cost Lena her life.
Jimmy's true colors came to light as her actions were exposed. She was a greedy, manipulative woman who would stop at nothing to get her hands on Ryan's money.
She didn't care about the consequences or the people she hurt along the way. Detectives Martinez and Harris discovered that Jimmy had been plotting her scheme for a long time. She knew Ryan would be captivated by her looks from the moment they met at a party. Ryan soon hired her as his personal trainer, and their affair began. From there, they continued to secretly meet, both in Ryan's home while Lena Weir and at various hotels, fueling their passionate relationship. During the investigation, detectives found more incriminating text messages and emails between Ryan and Jimmy. These messages showed how Jimmy methodically and cleverly manipulated Ryan into thinking that killing Lena was the only way to ensure their happiness together. She played on his emotions, using promises of love, fear of losing everything, and flattery to control him. Jimmy painted a perfect picture of a future filled with passion, one that could only be realized if Lena was out of the way. With enough evidence in hand, detectives Martinez and Harris were ready to make arrests. On March 20th, 2022, they arrested Ryan Brooks at his office in downtown Savannah. He was in the middle of a meeting when the detectives arrived, showing their badges and telling him he was under arrest for the murder of his wife. Ryan was shocked and panicked, stammering that there had been a mistake. His employees and clients watched in silence as he was led out in handcuffs. Jimmy, the mastermind behind it all, was also arrested. She had used her charm and allure to manipulate Ryan into killing his wife. Jimmy had believed she was untouchable, arrogantly assuming she had total control over Ryan. However, she underestimated his eventual willingness to confess and implicate her. The detectives revealed to Ryan that Jimmy had also been having an affair with Ethan Taylor, the young computer specialist she had used to hack into Ryan's financial records. Realizing the extent of Jimmy's betrayal, Ryan finally broke down and confessed everything, including Jimmy's role in the murder plot. Ethan, too, was manipulated by Jimmy, who used a relationship with him to commit the cybercrime. Though Ethan initially denied knowing about the murder, he eventually admitted to being manipulated into hacking Ryan's accounts under Jimmy's promises. But he maintained that he had no idea about the plot to kill Lena and expressed guilt over his involvement in the scheme.
Jimmy's overconfidence was her downfall.
Jimmy's overconfidence was her downfall. Her manipulation unraveled as detectives pieced together the testimonies of both Ryan and Ethan. She had not only ruined lives, but also orchestrated a crime that left a lasting impact on the community. In the end, Jimmy faced the consequences of her actions, and justice was served.
The trial for Lena Brooks's murder
began on December 5th, 2022. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Sarah Bennett, argued that Ryan Brooks, desperate to be with Jimmy while preserving his career and wealth, had murdered his wife under Jimmy's manipulation. The defense attorney, James Caldwell, a skilled lawyer known for his calm demeanor, argued that Ryan was a victim of Jimmy's sexual manipulation. He emphasized Ryan's clean record and cooperation with police,
suggesting that Ryan wasn't a
cold-blooded killer, but someone manipulated into a terrible act.
The emotional testimonies from Lena's
family agreed to the case. Her parents, James and Margaret Collins, spoke of their daughter's kindness and dedication to teaching, describing how her death had devastated their lives.
After 3 days of
deliberation, on December 7th, 2022,
the jury found Ryan Brooks
guilty of first-degree murder.
He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Jimmy Reed was found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and received a 25-year sentence. Having cooperated with the investigation,
received a lesser sentence of 5 years for his role in the crime.
Lena's family,
while heartbroken, found some relief in the verdict. They knew justice had been served, but it couldn't bring Lena back. The community of Savannah, too, felt a mix of shock and closure. The case had revealed a dark tale of betrayal and manipulation, forever leaving its mark on the town.
Ryan Brooks's life was shattered.
Once a respected real estate businessman, he now faced a life of regret in prison. He spent his days reflecting on the choices that led him there, haunted by the fact that he had betrayed the kind, loving wife who had always stood by him. In his desperation to be with Jimmy, he had posed Lena's body to make it look like she had been unfaithful. But the truth was far different. Lena had been a loyal, caring woman who brought warmth to everyone around her. The guilt of his actions weighed heavily on him as he realized how he had let Jimmy manipulate him into this tragic end.
Jimmy and Ethan were both sent to serve their time in separate prisons.
Jimmy, once a vibrant and charming personal trainer, struggled to adjust to prison life. Her once glowing personality faded as she came to terms with the reality of her situation. Ethan, on the other hand, retreated even further into his own world, spending his time in the prison library, keeping to himself as much as possible.
Detectives Martinez and Harris
were praised for their thorough investigation. Their relentless pursuit of the truth had brought justice for Lena, and the case became a benchmark for future investigations in Savannah. Lena's family, though devastated by their loss, tried to move forward. They started a scholarship fund in Lena's name to support students pursuing a career in education, hoping to keep her memory alive in a positive way. The community of Savannah slowly returned to normal, but the memory of Lena's murder lingered. It was a stark reminder of how betrayal and manipulation could lead to devastating consequences.
The case of Lena Brooks's murder
left a lasting impact on everyone involved. It was a tragic story that showed just how quickly life could change when driven by selfish desires. Though time passed, the community worked to heal, always remembering the kind-hearted teacher who was taken far too soon. On a hot and sticky afternoon in mid-August 2008, a tragedy unfolded in the heart of Atlanta, Georgia. This event would ripple through the local community, leaving a family shattered. James Miller, at 56 years old, seemed like the perfect example of achieving the American dream. He grew up in Atlanta, the youngest of 3 children in a working-class family. From a young age, he showed intelligence and a strong work ethic qualities that would lead him to success. After finishing high school in 1970, James went on to study at Georgia State University, where he earned a degree in business administration. James started his career in retail, but he quickly rose through the ranks and eventually opened his own chain of hardware stores called Thompson's Tools and More. These stores became a well-loved fixture in the community, known for offering great Kiss-Johnner service. He wasn't just a successful entrepreneur, James was also a well-known figure in Atlanta. He was actively involved in local charities, frequently hosting fundraisers and donating to important causes. His warm smile and approachable personality made him a favorite among many. Even with all his accomplishments, James stayed humble and was always willing to help others. Yet, behind his successful image, James struggled with personal demons a side few people ever saw. Linda Miller, James's 54-year-old wife, was known for her grace and compassion. She was originally from Savannah, Georgia, where she grew up in a large, tight-knit family that valued education and community service. And Linda graduated from Spelman College in 1976 with a degree in education. She then returned to Savannah to begin her career as a high school teacher. But Linda's dedication to her students was unmatched. She was always going the extra mile to help them succeed. For over 20 years, she taught English at a local high school, earning a reputation for her nurturing and caring nature. Her students and colleagues held her in high regard. Linda met James in 2001 at a charity event in Savannah. Both were deeply involved in their communities, and their shared passion for giving back brought them together. Linda was quickly drawn to James's charm and his commitment to helping others. After a whirlwind romance, they got married in 2002. Linda moved to Atlanta to start a new life with James, bring along her young son, Chris. James enthusiastically stepped into the role of stepfather. Though he had no children of his own, he was eager to take on the responsibility of helping raise Chris. Initially, Chris was cautious around James, unsure of this new figure in his life. But James's steady support and genuine interest in his well-being eventually won him over. James became more than just a stepfather to Chris. He became a mentor and friend, helping him with school and encouraging his hobbies. On the outside, their blended family seemed perfect a picture of success and happiness. Chris Johnson, Linda's 21-year-old son from her previous marriage, was a young man full of promise.
Born in Savannah in 1987,
Chris had always been bright and curious. His relationship with his biological father was difficult. His father left the family when Chris was just 5 years old. This created a gap in Chris' life that wasn't filled until James came along. Academically, Chris excelled, particularly in math and science. His natural intelligence and creativity set him apart from his classmates. In high school, he discovered a passion for engineering, which led him to study mechanical engineering at Georgia Tech. His professors often praised his innovative thinking and ability to solve difficult problems with ease.
Chris wasn't just known for his brains, he was also an accomplished athlete.
He had joined the wrestling team in high school and quickly rose to become one of the top wrestlers in his division. Even in college, he continued to wrestle, earning numerous awards and respect from his teammates. His tall, athletic build was proof of the hard work and discipline he put into the sport. Despite all his achievements, Chris remained grounded and kind-hearted. He was especially close to his mother, often turning to her for advice and support. And the bond between Chris and James also grew stronger over time. James guided him not just in his studies, but also in life. To outsiders, Chris seemed to have it all: a bright future, a supportive family, and a sharp mind. However, beneath the surface, life within the Thompson household was much more complicated than anyone could have guessed. James Miller's path to adulthood had been far from simple, and as Chris entered adulthood himself, tensions began to simmer within the family. James Miller's life had spun wildly out of control. What once looked like the American dream had turned into a nightmare. And by the time anyone realized the full extent of the chaos, it was too late. His secret double life, his inner demons, and his inappropriate feelings for his stepson, Chris, had driven him to make reckless decisions. Till the facade he'd maintained for so long was crumbling, and soon it all came crashing down.
The turning point came in the fall of 2008.
Just months after the humid August afternoon that had set the tone for a series of dark events. James's increasingly erratic behavior hadn't gone unnoticed. Tensions in the Thompson household had reached a boiling point. Linda, who had once been blissfully unaware of her husband's inner turmoil, started to notice his growing distance and the strange, unspoken tension between him and Chris. She tried to hold their family together, but the strain became too much.
After another heated argument between James and
Linda, everything spiraled out of control.
James had been drinking more heavily than usual,
James had been drinking more heavily than usual, trying to numb the pain of his inner conflict. That night, something inside him snapped. A confrontation between James and Chris quickly escalated into a physical altercation, fueled by James' frustration, guilt, and conflicting emotions. And the chaos, James struck Chris, an act of violence that shocked even himself. Realizing what he had done, James fled the house, leaving Linda and Chris in a state of shock and fear. James drove aimlessly through the streets of Atlanta, his mind racing with thoughts of regret and self-loathing. He knew he had crossed the line, and there was no going back.
He drove considering his options,
until finally he made a decision that would change everything. James pulled into the driveway of his business partner's house. A man named Mark, and confessed everything. The shame, the secrets, the inappropriate feelings for Chris, all of it came pouring out. Mark, stunned by James's confession, urged him to seek help, but James refused. He was convinced that there was no redemption for him, so the only way out in his mind was to escape. That's when James hatched a plan, a desperate, dangerous plan that would take him to the brink.
James had
So by the
packed a bag
following
and
morning,
disappeared.
James had
He
packed a
left
bag and
behind
disappeared.
everything his
He had
wife,
left behind
his stepson,
everything his wife,
business, and the
his
life he had
stepson,
spent decades
his business,
building.
and the
So
life he
Linda,
had spent
heartbroken and
decades building.
confused,
So Linda,
reported him
heartbroken
missing
and
to the
confused,
authorities.
reported
Days
him
turned
missing
into
to the
weeks,
authorities.
and there was
Days
no sign
turned
of
into
James.
weeks,
That seems
and
as
there
though
was
he had
no sign
vanished
of
without a
James.
trace.
It seemed as though he had vanished
But
without a
James hadn't
trace.
gone far in
But
reality.
James
He
hadn't
had
gone
retreated to
far
a
in
remote
reality.
cabin in the
He had
mountains of
retreated to a
northern
remote
Georgia,
cabin in the
a
mountains
place
of
where he
northern
believed
Georgia,
no one could
a
find
place
him.
where he
He
believed
had become
no
a
one could
fugitive in
find
his
him.
own mind,
He had
living
become a
off the grid
fugitive
and
in his own
completely
mind,
isolated
living
from
off
the
the
world.
grid and completely
James
isolated
spent
from the
months in
world.
hiding,
James
battling his
spent
inner
months in
demons,
hiding,
until
battling
one
his inner
fateful
demons,
day, the law
until
finally
one
caught up
fateful
with him.
day, the law finally caught up
In
with him.
early 2009, a tip
In early
led
2009,
authorities to
a tip
James's hiding
led
spot.
authorities to James's
He was
hiding
arrested
spot.
without incident
He was arrested
and
without
charged with a
incident
series of
and charged with a
offenses
series
related to his
of
disappearance
offenses related to
and the
his
assault on
disappearance
Chris.
and the
His once
assault on
flawed
Chris.
reputation was shattered.
His once
and the
flawed
community that
reputation
had
was
once
shattered,
admired him
and the
now
community
saw
that
him
had
as a
once
fallen
admired
man,
him now saw
consumed
him as
by
a
his
fallen
own
man,
secrets.
consumed by his own
The trial
secrets.
that followed was a media
The trial
sensation,
that followed was
with
a media
reporters and
sensation,
onlookers eager
with
to
reporters
understand
and
how a man
onlookers
like James
eager to
Miller,
understand how a
respected
man like James
businessman
Miller,
and
a
beloved
respected
member of the
businessman
community had fallen
and
so
beloved
far
member
in
of the
court.
community had fallen so
James's
far
attorney
in
painted a
court.
picture of a man who had
James's
been
attorney
struggling
painted
with
a picture of a
unresolved
man who had been
issues
struggling
from
with
his past.
unresolved
But
issues
it was
from his
clear to
past.
everyone that the damage
But it
had
was
been
clear
done.
to
James was
everyone that the
sentenced to
damage
prison,
had been done.
leaving
James
behind
was
the life
sentenced
he
to
had
prison,
built and the family
leaving
he had
behind the
torn
life he
apart.
had built and the family he had torn
But even
apart.
prison couldn't contain
But even
James's
prison
restless
couldn't
spirit.
contain James's restless
Over the
spirit.
years, the weight of his
Over the
guilt and the
years,
shame of his
the weight
actions
of his
gnawed at
guilt
him.
and the shame of his
And by
actions gnawed at him.
2014, James was a
And by
shell of the man he had
2014,
once
James
been.
was a shell of the
He
man he
became
had
obsessed
once
with the
been.
idea of escape
He became
both from his
obsessed with the
physical
idea of
prison
escape
and from
both
the
from his
prison of his
physical
own
prison
mind.
and from the
The
prison of his
plan to
own
break out of
mind.
prison wasn't
The
something
plan to
James
break
came
out
up
of
with
prison
overnight.
wasn't something
It
James
was
came up with
born out of
overnight.
years of
It
desperation
was
and a
born out of
desire
years
to
of
reclaim some
desperation
sense
and
of
a desire
control
to
over his
reclaim
life.
some
He
sense of
started making
control over
connections
his life.
inside,
He started
finding
making
other
connections
inmates who were equally
inside,
desperate to
finding
get
other
out.
inmates who
Together,
were equally
they
desperate
plotted
to get
their
out.
escape,
Together, they
carefully
plotted their
crafting a
escape,
plan that would
carefully
unfold on
crafting
a
a
stormy
plan
summer
that
night
would
in
unfold on a stormy
2015.
summer night in
On that night,
2015.
with the rain pouring down in sheets,
On that night, with
James
the
and three
rain
other
pouring down in
inmates put the
sheets,
plan into
James and
action.
three other
They had managed
inmates
to
put
bribe
the
a
plan
guard
into
to leave the
action.
gate
They had managed to bribe a
unlocked,
guard to
and
leave
under
the
the
gate
cover of darkness
unlocked,
and
and
chaos,
under
they
the
made their
cover of
move.
darkness and chaos,
They
they made their move.
Let's let it go.
Because
James,
it's like
now
it-
63
James,
years old,
now
but still
63
sharp
years
and
old,
determined,
but still
led
sharp
the
and
group
determined,
through a series of
led the
tunnels.
group through a
The
series
network
of
pre
tunnels,
and network
a network
he had
pre and
learned about
network
during his time in the
he had
facility.
learned about during
For
his time
hours
in
they
the
crawled
facility.
through out muddy,
For hours
waterlogged
they crawled
tunnels,
through out
inching
muddy,
closer to freedom.
waterlogged
That the
tunnels,
storm
inching
outside
closer
masked
to
the sounds
freedom.
their
That the
escape,
storm
and by
outside
the time
masked
the
the sounds
prison
their
guards
escape. And by the
realized
time the
something was
prison
wrong,
guards
it was too
realized
late.
something was wrong,
James
it
and
was
his
too
group had made it
late.
to the edge of the
James
prison
and his
grounds.
group had made it to the edge of the
But
prison
freedom
grounds.
came at a price.
But
As
freedom
they
came at a
emerged from the
price.
tunnels, one of
As
the
they
inmates
emerged
was
from the
caught in
tunnels,
rainwater,
one of the
swept away
inmates was caught
before
in
anyone could
rainwater,
help.
swept
James
away
and the remaining
before
two
anyone could
inmates
help.
pressed on,
James and the
running through
remaining
the
two
forest
inmates
as fast
pressed
as their
on,
tired
running
bodies
through
would
the
allow.
forest as
So
fast
they
as
knew
their
they had to
tired
move
bodies would
quickly
allow.
before the
So they knew
authorities
they had
caught
to
up.
move quickly before
For the
the
next few
authorities
weeks,
caught up.
James was a
For the next
fugitive
few
once
weeks,
again, living
James
on
was
the
a
run,
fugitive once again,
moving from place
living
to
on
place,
the run,
always looking over
moving
his
from
shoulder.
place to
But
place,
deep down,
always
he
looking
knew it was
over
only
his
a matter
shoulder.
of time
But deep
before the
down,
law
he
would
knew it was
catch up
only a
with him
matter of
once
time
more.
before
But
the
on the
law would
end,
catch
it
up
wasn't
with
the
him
authorities
once
who
more.
brought James
On the
down,
end,
it was
it
his
wasn't the
own
authorities who brought
conscience.
James down, it was his
After
own
nearly a month
conscience.
on the run,
After
James
nearly a
turned
month on the
himself
run,
in.
James turned
Exhausted and
himself
broken,
in.
he knew he couldn't
Exhausted
live
and broken,
with the weight
he
of
knew
his
he
actions
couldn't
any
live
longer.
with the
The
weight of his
escape had
actions
given
any
him a
longer.
brief taste of
The
freedom,
escape had given
but it
him a
hadn't
brief
freed him
taste of
from the
freedom,
guilt that had
but it hadn't freed him from the guilt that had plagued him for so many years.
James Miller was returned to prison.
James Miller was returned to prison, where he would live out the remainder of his days, forever haunted by the choices he had made and the lives he had destroyed. And the legacy of his downfall served as a grim reminder of how secrets, shame, and unacknowledged desires can lead to one's ultimate undoing.
James had convinced himself that he could keep his
James
double
had
life a
convinced
secret,
himself that he could keep his double life a secret, especially from his family. He rationalized that his secret encounters with other men were just a way to satisfy his hidden desires without putting his marriage or his fragile relationship with Chris in jeopardy. But the more he indulged in these secret meetings, the more distant he became from the man he once was. The world he had carefully built was starting to crumble under the weight of his lies. The guilt of betraying Linda was overwhelming, but the shame he felt over his feelings for Chris was even worse. James was living a life split between two worlds, one that was safe, respectable and expected, and another that was thrilling, dangerous, and forbidden. His secret life was creating an ever-growing rift within him, one that threatened to destroy everything he had worked so hard to build. His feelings for Chris were like a ticking time bomb, one that he knew could go off at any moment, tearing apart not only his life, but also the lives of those he loved.
Despite the risk, James couldn't stop himself from being drawn deeper into this dark side of himself. It was as if the more he tried to suppress his desires, the stronger they became.
And he felt powerless to resist. So Chris continued to grow into his own person. James's feelings became even more complicated. And he found himself trapped in a web of his own making, where every decision only seemed to pull him deeper into his own turmoil.
Chris was navigating his own emotional landscape.
His journey of self-discovery took a sharp turn when he joined the wrestling team at Georgia Tech. Wrestling wasn't just a sport for Chris, it became a passion. He loved the physicality of it, the way his body engaged with others, and the sense of camaraderie that came with being part of a team. But as he spent more time grappling with his opponents on the mat, Chris began to notice something else, and there was an unfamiliar thrill he felt during those moments of close contact with his teammates. In the locker room, surrounded by his teammates, Chris became aware of his gaze lingering a little too long on the other guys. He felt a rush of excitement mixed with guilt as he recognized a desire he had never fully acknowledged. This realization that he was attracted to men through Chris into a whirlwind of confusion, challenging everything he had believed about himself.
Despite his growing attraction to his male
teammates, Chris didn't act on those feelings. Up until this point, he maintained a cautious distance, never crossing the line.
His relationship with James had always been a source of stability for him. But as he grew older, that relationship began to change. What started as respect for his stepfather slowly evolved into something more complex. James had always been a steady guiding figure in Chris' life.
He provided support, advice, and a model of what it meant to be a successful man. But as Chris matured, their relationship shifted. The unresolved issues with his biological father played a role in this, creating a unique bond between him and James. Over time, Chris began to see James not just as a father figure, but as a man with his own flaws and vulnerabilities. This realization brought about feelings of confusion and curiosity, which gradually deepened into something more. For James, the growing attraction to Chris caught him off guard. He had always seen himself as a traditional man, devoted to his family, his role as a husband and a stepfather. But his unresolved desires from his past had started to surface, and he found himself increasingly drawn to Chris. This attraction wasn't just physical, it was emotional, rooted in the close relationship they had developed over the years. The turning point came as Chris reached his early 20s. As he became more independent and confident, the dynamic between him and James began to shift in ways neither had anticipated. Chris started to view James not just as a father figure, but as a man, someone with his own struggles and complexities. This new perspective stirred feelings within Chris that he couldn't fully understand. In the relationship between James and Chris began to take a romantic and secretive turn. So they exchanged lingering glances and fleeting touches, with each moment filled with unspoken words that said far more than they dared to admit. Both men knew their connection was wrong, but the pull was too strong. They were entangled in a relationship that was both forbidden and emotionally charged, and the weight of their guilt grew heavier with every passing day. Neither James nor Chris could deny what was happening between them, but they both knew that if their secret ever came to light, the consequences would be devastating for their family and their own lives. To the intensity of the emotions between James and Chris made it impossible for either of them to simply walk away from the complicated relationship. James's internal struggle only worsened because his attraction to men wasn't limited to Chris. Even as he grew closer to his stepson, James continued to pursue secret encounters with other men, something Chris had no idea about. To these hidden meetings allowed James to explore the desires he had kept buried for so long, but they also left him feeling even more conflicted and torn apart. Chris, unaware of James's other affairs, was entirely focused on their secret relationship. He was caught in a whirlwind of feelings: excitement, guilt, love, and fear, all heightened by the fact that their bond was forbidden. But the secrecy made their connection even stronger. But at the same time, it was like a chain neither could break easily. But as the relationship deepened, the stakes grew higher. James lived in constant fear of losing everything: his family, his reputation, his business. Yet he also felt an overwhelming need to explore this side of himself that he had hidden for so long. Two sides of his life became harder and harder to balance, and the cracks in his carefully constructed world were starting to show.
Two,
Chris was
he
struggling.
loved his mother deeply
Two,
and knew that if she
he
ever
loved his
found
mother
out about his
deeply and knew
relationship
that if
with
she ever
James,
found
it
out
would
about his
destroy her.
relationship
But
with
at the same
James,
time,
it would
he
destroy
couldn't
her.
ignore the
But at the
powerful
same time,
feelings he had
he
for
couldn't
James,
ignore the powerful
which seemed to
feelings he
grow
had for
stronger with
James,
every passing
which seemed
day.
to grow stronger
The
with
weight of
every
the secret
passing
they
day.
shared began
The
to wear him
weight of
down,
the secret they
leaving him
shared began
torn
to wear
between
him
his
down,
love for James
leaving
and his
him torn
loyalty to
between his
Linda.
love for James and his
So
loyalty
the
to
situation
Linda.
was made even more
So
complicated
their
by the
situation
fact
was
that they
made
all
even
lived
more
under the same
complicated by the
roof.
fact
The
that they all
constant
lived
closeness
under
made
the
it
same
difficult
roof.
for
The
James
constant
and Chris
closeness made it
to
difficult
keep
for
up the
James and
appearance
Chris
of a normal
to keep
family.
up the appearance
And
of
the
a
tension
normal
between them
family.
was becoming
And the
increasingly
tension between
obvious.
them was becoming
They had to be
increasingly
careful
obvious.
not to let their
They had to be
emotions slip,
careful not to let
especially
their
in front
emotions
of
slip,
Linda, who was
especially
starting
in
to
front
notice
of
the
Linda,
changes in
who
their
was starting to
behavior.
notice the changes
As
in their
time went on,
behavior.
the secret relationship
As
between
time went
James
on,
and Chris
the secret
became a
relationship
heavy
between
burden
James
for
and
both of
Chris
them. The
became a
initial
heavy
thrill they had
burden for
felt
both of
was
them.
now
The initial
overshadowed by
thrill they had
crushing doubts
felt
and fear.
was now overshadowed
Chris,
by
who had
crushing
once been
doubts and
so
fear.
close to his mother,
Chris, who had
began
once
to
been so
pull
close
away
to his
from her,
mother,
unable to
began
face
to
the
pull
reality
away from her,
of what he
unable
was
to face
doing.
the
He
reality
distanced himself,
of what he was
consumed by
doing.
the
He
betrayal
distanced
he was hiding.
himself, consumed by the
James,
betrayal
too,
he was
was
hiding.
racked with guilt.
James,
His
too,
love
was
for
racked
Linda
with
was
guilt.
real, but the
His love
powerful
for Linda
emotions
was
he
real,
felt for
but
Chris
the powerful
overwhelmed him.
emotions
This
he
inner
felt for
turmoil
Chris
left him
overwhelmed him.
anxious and on
This inner
edge,
turmoil left
and
him
Linda started
anxious
to
and on
notice the
edge.
changes. The
And
house,
Linda
once
started to
filled with
notice the
warmth and
changes.
love,
The
grew
house,
colder
once
and
filled
more
with warmth and
tense.
love, grew
The
colder and more
awkward
tense.
silences, the evasive
The
answers
awkward
indicated
silences,
something
the
was
evasive
wrong,
answers
even
indicated
though she
something
couldn't yet
was
put her
wrong,
finger on it.
even though she couldn't
Adding
yet
to
put
the
her
strain,
finger on
James
it.
continued to engage
Adding to
in
the
secret
strain,
affairs
James
with other
continued
men.
to engage in secret
The more
affairs
he
with
tried
other
to
men.
juggle his double life,
The more he tried
the
to
more
juggle his
difficult
double
it
life,
became.
the more
He was
difficult
plagued
it
by
became.
sleepless nights,
He was plagued
constantly
by
worried
sleepless
that his
nights,
lies would be exposed.
constantly worried that his
Chris,
lies
on the
would be
other hand, was
exposed.
consumed by the
Chris,
fear
on the
their
other
secret
hand,
mail
was
come out and
consumed by the
destroy
fear their
everything. It
secret mail
began to
come out
affect
and
his studies
destroy
and his
everything. It
relationships
began
with
to
friends,
affect his studies
as
and
the
his
pressure of
relationships
living
with
in
friends,
secrecy weighed him
as the
down.
pressure of living in secrecy weighed
Then
him
on
down.
August 17,
Then on
2008,
August
everything
17,
came to a tragic head.
2008, everything
It
came
was a
to a
warm
tragic
and
head.
humid day in Atlanta.
It was a warm and
Linda had
humid
spent
day
the
in
morning at
Atlanta,
work,
and Linda
unaware
had
that her
spent the
life was
morning at
about to
work,
change forever.
unaware that
Then when
her
she
life was
returned home
about to
in the
change
early
forever.
afternoon,
And when she returned home in the early afternoon, she
The house was
immediately sensed
unusually
something was
quiet,
off.
and
The house
James,
was
who had the day
unusually
off, was
quiet,
nowhere to be
and
found.
James, who had the day off, was
Linda
nowhere to be
called out
found.
for him, but the silence
Linda
that
called
followed
out for
filled her
him,
with dread.
but the silence that followed
Worried,
filled her
she
with
began
dread.
searching the house,
Worried,
and when she
she began
descended
searching
into
the
the basement
house,
where
and
James
when she
often
descended
worked,
into the
she was
basement where
confronted
James
with a
often
horrific
worked,
scene.
she was
James was
confronted
lying
with a
face down
horrific
in a
scene.
pool of
James was
blood.
lying face down
In
in a
shock and
pool of
panic,
blood.
Linda rushed to
In
him,
shock and panic,
trying to
Linda
understand what
rushed
had
to him,
happened.
trying to understand what had
It was
happened.
clear he had been dead for hours.
It was
So
clear he had been
her
dead for
screams of
hours.
anguish
So
caught the attention of
her
their neighbor,
screams of
John
anguish caught
Taylor,
the attention
who
of their
quickly
neighbor.
ran over to help.
John
So he
Taylor,
found Linda
who
beside
quickly ran
James's
over to
body,
help. So he found
trembling
Linda
with
beside
grief and
James's body,
confusion.
trembling with
John
grief and
immediately called the
confusion.
police, and within
John
minutes,
immediately
the once
called the
quiet
police,
street was
and
filled with
within minutes,
flashing
the
lights
once
and the
quiet street
sounds
was
of
filled with
sirens.
flashing lights and the
Police
sounds of
arrived and secured
sirens.
the crime scene, while
Police
paramedics
arrived and
confirmed
secured
what
the
was
crime scene,
already
while
painfully
paramedics
clear
confirmed
James
what was
Miller was
already
dead.
painfully
Detective John
clear
Richards,
James
a
Miller was
seasoned
dead.
investigator,
Detective John
took
Richards, a
charge of the
seasoned
case.
investigator,
As
took charge
officers
of the
began
case.
questioning Linda
As
and John,
officers began
Detective
questioning
Richards
Linda and
started
John,
piecing together
Detective
the events that
Richards
had led
started
to this
piecing
tragic
together
discovery.
the events that had led to this
Linda,
tragic
still in shock,
discovery.
recounted her day and how she
Linda,
had
still in
found James's
shock,
body in
recounted
the
her day
basement.
and how
John
she had found
explained that he
James's
had
body in
heard
the
her
basement.
screaming
John
and rushed
explained
over
that
to
he had
help.
heard her screaming
As
and
Detective
rushed
Richards
over to
examined
help.
the scene,
As
he
Detective
noticed signs of
Richards
a struggle
examined the
in the
scene,
basement,
he
but
noticed
there were
signs of
no
a struggle in
immediate
the
signs of
basement,
forced
but there were
entry,
no immediate
leaving more
signs of
questions
forced
than
entry,
answers.
leaving more
Given the
questions than
unusual
answers.
circumstances,
And
Linda
given
was
the
taken to
unusual
the police station for
circumstances,
further
Linda was
questioning.
taken to the
Despite her
police
grief,
station
she
for
gave a
further
consistent
questioning.
alibi
Despite her
stating
grief, she gave a consistent alibi stating she had been at work all morning. The police corroborated her story by checking her phone records and confirming her whereabouts with coworkers. With her alibi confirmed, Linda was released, but the investigation was far from
Detectives then
over.
turned to James's phone records,
Detectives then
which revealed a
turned to
call
James's
made that
phone
morning
records,
to his
which
business
revealed a
partner,
call made
Mark
that morning
Davis,
to his
to whom
business
Mitchell was brought in
partner,
for
Mark
questioning.
Davis, to
He
whom Mitchell
admitted
was
to
brought in
visiting
for
James
questioning.
earlier that
He
morning to
admitted to
discuss
visiting
business
James earlier
matters,
that morning to
raising
discuss
even more
business
questions
matters,
about what had
raising
transpired in the
even
hours
more
before
questions
James's
about what
death.
had transpired in the hours
Mark
before
Davis
James's
maintained
death.
that he had left James's
Mark
house
Davis maintained
shortly
that
after
he had
their
left
meeting,
James's house
but his alibi
shortly
seemed
after their
flimsy,
meeting. But his
and the police
alibi
grew
seemed
suspicious,
flimsy,
given the
and the
potential
police were
financial
suspicious,
motives
given the
and the
potential
weak
financial
explanation.
motives
They
and the
decided
weak
to take a
explanation.
DNA sample
They decided
and
to
keep
take a
him as a
DNA
person
sample
of interest.
and keep
As the
him as a
investigation
person of
pressed
interest.
on,
As
police
the
dug
investigation
deeper into
pressed on,
James's personal
police
life.
dug deeper into
What they
James's personal
uncovered was
life.
far more shocking
What they
than anyone had
uncovered was
anticipated.
far more shocking than
Through a
anyone had
series of
anticipated.
messages and social media
Through a series of
interactions,
messages and social
detectives
media
discovered
interactions,
that James had been
detectives
involved in
discovered
multiple
that
secret
James had been
relationships with other
involved
men.
in
And
multiple
even more
secret
shocking was the
relationships with other
revelation
men.
that one of
And
these
even more
relationships
shocking was
with
the
his
revelation that
stepson,
one of these
Chris.
relationships was
The
with
discovery
his
sent ripples
stepson,
of disbelief
Chris.
through the
The discovery sent
investigation.
ripples of
Chris
disbelief
was
through the
quickly brought in for
investigation.
questioning,
Chris
and
was
when
quickly brought
confronted
in
with
for
the evidence
questioning,
of his
and when
relationship with
confronted with the
James,
evidence
he
of his
reluctantly
relationship with
admitted to the
James,
affair. However,
he reluctantly
firmly
admitted to the
denied having
affair.
anything to
However,
do with
he
James's
firmly
death.
denied having anything to do
Chris'
with
alibi
James's
wasn't
death.
solid.
Chris' alibi wasn't solid, and with the growing pile of evidence against him, he became the primary suspect in the case. Investigators carried out a thorough search of the basement, where James had been Timmins housed. During the search, they uncovered hidden surveillance cameras, which ultimately revealed the truth of what happened on the day of the murder.
In the footage from the camera showed that Mark Davis had
indeed visited James that morning. And while they had an intense conversation, there was no indication that Mitchell was involved in any physical altercation. He left after a short time, and 2 hours later, Chris entered the basement. What followed was a heated argument between Chris and James. So the argument erupted after Chris discovered James's ongoing infidelities with other men. The tension escalated quickly, and the argument turned violent, culminating in Chris fatally attacking James in a fit of uncontrollable rage. Faced with the undeniable evidence from the footage, Chris broke down and confessed to the crime. He explained that it had been a moment of madness driven by deep feelings of betrayal and emotional pain. He couldn't handle the revelation of James's ongoing deceit and his secret affairs. And in that moment, his anger had taken over, and he never intended for it to go that far, but the overwhelming emotions pushed him to commit the unthinkable.
She was devastated.
And Melinda heard the truth.
The reality of
she was devastated. The reality of her husband's secret life, and the fact that her own son had taken his life was too much to bear. Everything she thought she knew about her family had unraveled in the most horrific way. And the betrayal from both her husband and son left her shattered, unable to reconcile the life she had known with the dark secrets that had been hidden from her.
The trial took place on November 10th.
The trial took place on November 10th.
Chris pleaded guilty to manslaughter,
citing emotional distress and loss of control as mitigating factors.
With emotions running high on both sides as the prosecution and defense presented their cases.
The judge, while acknowledging the complexity of the situation and the emotional turmoil that had led to the crime, was firm in delivering the sentence. Taking into account the circumstances, Chris was sentenced to 15 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 10 years.
Marked the end of a
As the sentence was handed down, it marked the end of a tragic and painful chapter for the Thompson family. Linda now left to piece together what remained of her life, faced the immense grief of losing her husband and the imprisonment of her son. The once close-knit community was stunned, struggling to process the dark secrets that had been hidden beneath the surface of what seemed like a perfect family. The tragic fall the Thompson family left, everyone questioning how such dark desires, secrets, and emotions could tear apart a family and a community, leaving a legacy of sorrow that would linger for years to come. In the late summer of 2023, the humid air of Louisiana clung heavily to the small town of St. Martinsville. Emily Davis, 28, had lived in St. Martinsville for most of her life. She was an attractive woman with soft features and eyes that hinted at untold stories. Life hadn't always been rooted in this sleepy town. Originally from New Orleans, Emily had lived in the city until her early 20s. But when her mother died in a sudden car accident, everything changed.
With no siblings,
At just 21, with no siblings and an estranged relationship with her father, Emily felt adrift, unsure of her next steps. It was then that her Aunt Miss Parker offered her refuge. St. Martinsville, a world away from the chaos of New Orleans, seemed like a safe place to heal. Mrs. Parker, now 50, had always been a strong presence in the Dupree family. A widow with a will of iron, she had raised her daughter Rachel with firm discipline and unwavering love. Taking an Emily wasn't just a family duty, it was a chance for her niece to find peace in the quiet of the town. Grateful for the sanctuary, Emily moved in with her aunt and cousin, hoping for a fresh start. She quickly found work as a teacher at the local elementary school, where the children adored her. Despite her good looks and sharp mind, though, Emily struggled with a deep-seated insecurity, an ever-present doubt she couldn't quite shake. Life in St. Martinsville became a routine: waking up, helping Mrs. Parker, going to school, and returning to a house that, despite being full of family, often felt unbearably lonely. In recent years, Mrs. Parker's strength had begun to fade. Cancer and unrelenting force had stripped her of the vitality that once defined her. Now the formidable matriarch depended on Emily and Rachel for care. For Emily, watching her aunt, once a pillar of strength, become frail and vulnerable was a constant reminder of life's cruel impermanence. Miss Parker felt it too. The growing distance between her daughter and Emily troubled her deeply. Rachel, 27, was as kind and loving as her mother had raised her to be, but painfully oblivious to the brewing storm in her own home. 2 years earlier, she had married Ethan Johnson, a man she believed to be her soulmate. Ethan was charming, attentive, and devoted, or so it seemed. Rachel, devoted to caring for her ailing mother, poured all of her love into her marriage. unaware that it was slowly unraveling. Ethan Johnson, now 30, was a man who thrived on manipulation. Tall, with a smooth voice and dark eyes that held secrets. He had a knack for making people trust him. His criminal past was no secret in St. Martinsville, though it was rarely spoken of openly. Whispers of shady dealings followed him, but Ethan had a way of making people overlook the darkness that surrounded him. A master of manipulation, Ethan began using his charm on Emily. The distance Emily had always felt between herself and Rachel seemed to widen as they aged. But it wasn't until Ethan entered the picture that Emily truly began to question everything. Ethan made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. He would drop by the house under the guise of checking on Mrs. Parker or bringing Rachel something she'd forgotten, but the real reason was Emily. Their conversation started innocently. Enough small talk about the town or the weather, but there was always something more lurking beneath the surface. Emily knew it was wrong, the growing attraction she felt toward her cousin's husband, but she couldn't stop herself. Ethan made her feel alive, something she hadn't felt in a long time. He was everything her life wasn't: dangerous, exciting, unpredictable. Though she tried to push those feelings aside, they kept bubbling to the surface, tempting her with the possibility of something different, something more. As the days turned into weeks, the tension between Emily and Ethan intensified. It began suddenly a lingering glance, a hand that stayed on her arm for a moment too long, a shared smile that held more meaning than it should have. Emily found herself thinking about him constantly, replaying their conversations in her mind, wondering if he felt the same way. She hated herself for betraying her cousin even in her thoughts, but she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward him. What had started as casual visits to check on Mrs. Parker evolved into something much more complex. Ethan's charm was impossible to ignore. He made Emily feel appreciated in a way she hadn't experienced in years. Brief conversations in the kitchen while Rachel was out, or sharing coffee in the mornings, before the day's responsibilities set in, soon carried an emotional weight that neither of them could ignore. Meanwhile, Rachel, ever trusting, remained blissfully unaware of the growing connection between her husband and her cousin. She was consumed with caring for Mrs. Parker, who grew weaker by the day. Rachel found comfort in knowing that both Emily and Ethan were there to help, never suspecting that their bond had deepened in ways that went beyond family duty. She often expressed her gratitude to Emily for being such a devoted niece, and to Ethan for being the attentive husband she had always dreamed of. Each time Rachel thanked her, Emily felt a stab of guilt. It was as though every kind word Rachel spoke twisted the knife deeper, reminding Emily of the betrayal she was teetering on. One evening, after another long day of tending to Miss Parker, Emily and Ethan found themselves alone in the kitchen. The air was thick with humidity, and an even thicker silence hung between them, charged with unspoken tension. Ethan leaned casually against the counter, his eyes fixed on Emily as she busied herself with the dishes. But she could feel his gaze burning into her, feel the magnetic pull between them growing stronger. Finally, unable to bear the silence any longer, Emily turned to face him, her heart pounding in her chest. Ethan stepped closer, his voice low, serious. Emily, you know I care about you, right? You've been there for me, for Rachel, for Mrs. Parker. I don't know what we'd do without you.
She knew exactly where this was heading, and every fiber of her being screamed for her to stop it,
to walk away, but she couldn't move. She was paralyzed under the weight of his gaze, trapped in the spell Ethan had woven around her. Before she could respond, he reached out, his hand brushing lightly against her arm. It was a small gesture, but it sent a jolt of electricity through her body. He moved closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You mean more to me than you know, Emily. I've tried to fight it, but I can't deny how I feel about you. Her resolve shattered. She knew it was wrong, knew that even entertaining these thoughts was a betrayal to her cousin, but the intensity of Ethan's words and the warmth of his touch overwhelmed her. For just a moment she allowed herself to imagine what it would be like, what it would feel like to give in to the feelings she had been suppressing for so long. The weight of her responsibilities, the stifling routine of her life, seemed to fade away in that instant. Later that night, as she lay in bed, Emily couldn't stop replaying the scene in her mind. The attraction she felt toward Ethan was undeniable, but the guilt gnawed her insides. She had nearly crossed a line, one that would forever alter her life, and that realization terrified her. Yet despite her fear, she couldn't shake the image of Ethan from her mind. She couldn't ignore the way her heart raced whenever he was near. Temptation was growing, and Emily knew her life was teetering on the edge of a decision that could change everything. The weekend that would ignite a firestorm within the Dupree family began innocently enough. It was mid-September, the air carrying a faint hint of the coming fall. Rachel, eager for a brief escape from the heavy burden of her responsibilities, had planned a weekend trip to Baton Rouge to visit a close friend. She left that Friday afternoon, her spirits lifted by the thought of some much-needed relaxation. She trusted Ethan completely, believing his assurances that he would take care of everything at home, including checking in on Mrs. Parker, who remained under Emily's diligent care. As Rachel's heart disappeared from view, Ethan's thoughts shifted to the opportunity now lay before him. He had been patient, biding his time, waiting for the right moment to act on the tension between him and Emily. Now, with Rachel away, the stage was set. Ethan knew Emily was conflicted, that she was struggling with the feeling she tried so hard to suppress. But he also sensed her defenses were weakening. The time had come to push the boundaries further, to see just how far Emily would go. That evening, Ethan casually suggested to Emily that they spend some time together since Rachel was away. He proposed a simple plan of quiet dinner, followed by a drive around town.
It was the kind of thing family members might do.
It was the kind of thing family members might do. But beneath the surface, the undercurrent of unspoken tension made it clear this was no ordinary evening. Despite the nagging voice in her head warning her to stay away, Emily agreed. She told herself it was just dinner, just a drive, nothing more. But deep down, she knew the lines between right and wrong had already begun to blur. Dinner took place at a small, cozy cafe in town called Sunny Cafe. Emily and Ethan sat by the window, the warm glow of the evening sun casting a soft light over their table. They ordered simple dishes, Ethan, a shrimp po' boy, and Emily, her favorite gumbo. The atmosphere was relaxed, on the surface at least, but beneath it, the simmering tension was palpable.
Ethan's eyes never left Emily's.
Throughout the meal, Ethan's eyes never left Emily's. She found herself growing flustered under the intensity of his gaze, unable to concentrate on the conversation or the food in front of her. After dinner, Ethan suggested they go for a drive.
The sky clear.
The night was warm,
the full moon casting a soft glow over the quiet streets of St. Martinsville. But the lure
Emily
of the
hesitated for a moment. But the lure of the unknown, the temptation that had been building for weeks, proved too strong to resist. She nodded, and the two of them stepped out into the night, the wheels of fate already in motion. Emily agreed to the drive, hoping the cool night air would help clear her head, help her regain some sense of control. They cruised through the familiar streets of St. Martinsville, the conversation remaining light and easy at first, but as they left the town behind, the roads growing darker and more deserted. The atmosphere inside the car shifted, becoming more intense, heavy with unspoken tension. Ethan eventually pulled over at a secluded spot near the bayou, where the only sounds were the rustling of the trees and the distant call of night birds. He turned off the engine, and for a moment they sat in silence. The only light came from the moon reflecting off the still waters. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, her mind racing with the possibilities of what could happen next. She knew she should leave, should say goodnight and go back home. But Ethan's presence was too strong, too magnetic. Sensing her hesitation, Ethan reached out and gently took her hand in his. The touch was electric, sending a shiver down her spine. He turned toward her, his expression serious but his eyes filled with desire and desire that mirrored her own. Emily, he whispered, his voice soft, I know this is complicated, but there's something between us, something real. Emily opened her mouth to protest, to say something anything but the words wouldn't come. She knew he was right. The attraction had been building for months, and now, alone in the dark, it was impossible to ignore. Ethan leaned in, still holding her hand, and before she could process what was happening, his lips were on hers. The kiss started soft, hesitant, as if giving her a chance to pull away. But Emily didn't pull away. Instead, she found herself responding, her own desire drowning out the guilt. What began as a tentative kiss quickly escalated into something far more intense. The passion that had been simmering between them finally boiled over, and they gave in to the pull they had been fighting for so long. Ethan's hands roamed over Emily's body, and she responded with equal fervor. Their betrayal momentarily forgotten in the heat of the moment. In the darkness of that car, they crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Their bodies entwined in a forbidden embrace. When it was over, reality came crashing back down on Emily with a force that left her breathless. She had just betrayed her cousin in the worst possible way, and the guilt was overwhelming. But along with the guilt was a thrill, a sense of satisfaction she couldn't deny. Ethan, sensing her turmoil, tried to comfort her, to reassure her that everything would be okay. But Emily knew better. They had stepped onto a dangerous path, one that could only lead to heartache and destruction. In the days that followed, Emily and Ethan continued to meet in secret. Their encounters were brief, stolen moments filled with the same dangerous mix of passion and guilt. They knew they were playing with fire, but the excitement of their affair was intoxicating. It was impossible to resist. They were careful, always choosing their moments wisely. But in a small town like St. Martinsville, secrets were hard to keep. Mrs. Parker, though weakened by illness, wasn't blind to the changes in Emily and Ethan's behavior. She had noticed the way Emily avoided looking at Ethan, how Ethan seemed to linger just a little too long in her presence. Miss Parker had tried talking to Emily, expressing her concerns,
insisting she was just tired from the stress of caring for her aunt. But Mrs. Parker knew better. She could feel the tension in the air, like a dark cloud hanging over the house. The discovery happened on a sweltering August afternoon. The heavy Louisiana air was thick enough to smother,
and Rachel had returned home early from work, exhausted and sticky with sweat. She longed for the coolness of her home, some relief from the oppressive heat. Ethan had left his phone on the kitchen counter, its screen flashing with an incoming message. Rachel barely glanced at it, but something in the back of her mind nagged at her a small, insistent voice telling her that things hadn't been right lately. Ethan had been distant, secretive, and Rachel had ignored the warning signs for too long. Without fully realizing what she was doing, Rachel picked up his phone. The message was from Emily, her cousin, the woman she had trusted more than anyone. Her heart began to pound as she opened the thread, her hands trembling. What she saw turned her blood to ice. There in front of her was a series of messages filled with affection and desire, the kind of words no cousin should ever exchange with her husband. The screen blurred as tears welled up in her eyes.
The suspicion she had pushed down for weeks were now undeniable.
The betrayal hit her like a blow to the chest, leaving her breathless, dizzy with disbelief. Desperate and enraged, Rachel's world spun out of control. She stormed out of the house, her vision clouded by anger and heartbreak, and headed straight for Emily's home. She didn't care about the neighbors watching, didn't care about the gossip that would follow. All she wanted was answers. She needed to confront the two people who had torn her life apart. When Rachel arrived at Emily's house, Emily was in the middle of preparing dinner for Miss Parker. The moment she saw the theory etched in Rachel's features, her heart sank. Without saying a word, Rachel shoved Ethan's phone into Emily's hands, her voice trembling with a mix of rage and sorrow.
Rachel demanded.
What is this?
Eyes blazing with her.
Rachel demanded.
Emily's
her eyes blazing with her.
Looked at the screen.
Emily's hands trembled as she looked at the screen. The messages her own betrayal staring back at her in the harsh light. Guilt washed over her in waves, but the words she desperately wanted to say were stuck in her throat. How could she possibly explain this? How could she justify the months of deceit? Rachel's chest heaved with emotion as she stared at the cousin she had trusted like a sister. Her voice broke as she screamed, demanding answers. Emily stood frozen, overwhelmed by shame and the weight of her actions. Ethan entered the house in the midst of the chaos, sensing the storm that had been brewing. His attempt to calm Rachel only made things worse, fueling her anger. The air was thick with accusations and resentment, years of buried emotions rising to the surface. Miss Parker, frail and weakened by her illness, tried in vain to intervene. Her voice was lost in the shouting that filled the room as her family began to unravel before her eyes. Rachel's voice cracked as she demanded to know how long the affair had been going on, how Emily could betray her in such a cruel way. Emily, too ashamed to even look her cousin in the eye, remained silent. Ethan, ever the manipulator, tried to downplay what had happened, spinning lies to shift the blame, but Rachel was done listening. The trust that once bound the three of them had been shattered, the pieces too jagged and sharp to ever be put back together. In the tense days that followed, Rachel withdrew into herself. Her spirit crushed by the weight of the betrayal, she barely spoke. Consumed by the memories of Ethan and Emily's secret exchanges and the lies that had destroyed her life, the anger and despair twisted inside her, leaving her lost, adrift in her own emotions. Desperate to escape, she decided to leave St. Martinsville, packing a bag and driving off without a word, her destination unknown. With Rachel gone, Ethan seized the opportunity to meet with Emily. Despite the guilt-gnawing Eric, Emily couldn't resist him. Ethan suggested they meet in a remote part of the swamp, a place they both knew well, secluded from prying eyes. Emily reluctantly agreed, though a deep sense of dread clung to her as she drove towards the meeting point, the swamp, place of secrets and danger. Felt fitting for the ominous encounter. When she arrived, Ethan was already waiting, his expression unreadable. The overcast sky mirrored her mood, casting a gray pall over the landscape. They walked deeper into the swamp, the silence between them heavy with unspoken tension. In a small clearing, Ethan began to speak, his voice calm, as he tried to discuss their situation and what they could do next. But Emily wasn't listening. His words felt hollow, manipulative, and her anxiety grew with each passing second. Suddenly, Rachel emerged from the shadows, her face twisted with anguish and fury. She had followed them, driven by heartbreak and rage. The sight of her cousin and husband together in such a secluded place pushed her over the edge. The confrontation was explosive. Rachel's voice was raw with pain as she hurled accusations at them. Ethan tried to calm her, but she was beyond reason. In a fit of desperation, Rachel stormed to Ethan's car and retrieved the gun he always kept in the glove box. Emily's heart leapt into her throat as she wagered Rachel, shaking with rage, point the weapon at her.
Tears streaming down
Why?
her face.
Rachel screamed, tears streaming down her face.
Ethan and Emily
Why did you do this to me?
to calm down.
Ethan and Emily pleaded with her to calm down.
Her mind
But Rachel was too far gone. Her mind clouded with grief and betrayal. Ethan tried to approach her, hoping to disarm her. But in the chaos, he inadvertently blocked Emily from Rachel's view. In that moment, Rachel's finger tightened on the trigger. The gunshot shattered the stillness of the swamp, echoing through the trees. Emily staggered, her eyes wide with shock as the bullet struck her. She collapsed to the ground, blood soaking into the earth. For a moment, everything was still. The air hung thick with the smell of gunpowder as reality set in. Ethan, acting on instinct, wrestled the gun from Rachel, who stood frozen, trembling in horror at what she had done. The weight of their actions bore down on them. They had crossed a line from which there was no return. Ethan's mind worked quickly, coldly. We need to cover this up, he said, his voice devoid of emotion. The swamp's dark waters were the perfect place to hide the evidence. Numb and broken, Rachel followed Ethan as they dragged Emily's lifeless body to the edge of the water. They weighed her down with stones, watching as the murky water swallowed her whole. The finality of their crime settled over them, suffocating them in its intensity. When they returned to Mrs. Parker's house, they tried to keep their composure. Ethan spun a tale, explaining that he had ended things with Emily during a heated conversation, and that she had stormed off into the night. Rachel, playing the part of the forgiving wife, added that she had chosen to forgive Ethan, but they had no idea where Emily had gone after their argument. Mrs. Parker, though concerned, listened to their story, but a seed of doubt had been planted. As the evening wore on, her worry grew. She tried calling Emily repeatedly, but each attempt went straight to voicemail. By nightfall, with no word from Emily, Mrs. Parker's concern turned to full-blown panic. This was unlike her niece. Emily never stayed out without letting her know where she was. Fearing the worst, Mrs. Parker called the police, reporting Emily missing and voicing her suspicion that something was seriously wrong. The police responded quickly, understanding the urgency. They arrived at Mrs. Parker's home, gathering details and launching a search for Emily. Mrs. Parker insisted they question Ethan and Rachel about the events of that evening. When the police reached out, Ethan and Rachel stuck to their fabricated story, repeating the same lies they had told Miss Parker. But the cracks in their tale would soon begin to show, and the truth, buried deep in the swamp, was not as hidden as they hoped. The story Rachel and Ethan told Mrs. Parker began to unravel under scrutiny. Rachel's recounting of events was shaky, her voice wavered, and she stumbled over key details, raising the suspicions of the detectives. When the police spoke with Mrs. Parker privately, she revealed the growing tension between Emily and Rachel sparked by the affair with Ethan. Mrs. Parker was adamant that Emily would never vanish without a word, and her conviction prompted the police to treat the case with even more seriousness. As the investigation deepened, Ethan and Rachel quickly became the prime suspects in Emily's disappearance. The police obtained a warrant to search Ethan's home and car. During the search of the vehicle, they found Ethan's gun in the glove compartment. A quick inspection revealed that one bullet was missing from the magazine. The gun was sent for forensic analysis to determine if it had been fired recently, and both Rachel and Ethan were subjected to gunshot residue tests on their hands and clothing. The results were damning. Traces of gunshot residue were found on Rachel's hands and clothes, further implicating her in the crime. Brought in for further questioning, Rachel initially continued to deny any involvement in Emily's disappearance. However, under pressure, her story began to change. She admitted to taking Ethan's gun from the car and confronting Emily, but claimed she only fired the weapon into the air to scare her cousin into leaving Ethan alone. She insisted she hadn't killed Emily, but this confession only deepened the police's suspicion. Investigators then turned to cell phone data from both Ethan and Rachel to track their movements on the night Emily vanished. The location data led them to the ruined swamp area where the crime had occurred. With this new information, the police launched a full search, bringing in cadaver dogs trained to detect the scent of human remains. After hours of scouring the murky swamp, the dogs led officers to a shallow, secluded spot where Emily's body had surfaced. Though weighed down with stones, her body had been partially exposed by the shifting waters. With the grim discovery of Emily's body, the case against Ethan and Rachel was solidified. Both were arrested on the spot. Faced with overwhelming evidence and the pressure of impending justice, the two finally broke down and confessed. Ethan admitted to helping Rachel dispose of Emily's body, while Rachel confessed to shooting her cousin in a moment of uncontrollable rage. The trial was set for October 15, just weeks after the confession. Mrs. Parker, devastated and heartbroken, attended every court proceeding. Her heart ached not only for the loss of Emily, but for the profound betrayal by the people she'd once trusted. The courtroom was filled with tension as the verdict was delivered. Ethan was sentenced to 15 years in prison for his role in covering up Emily's murder.
without
Rachel
the
received
possibility
life
of
in
parole for
prison
first-degree
without
murder.
the possibility of parole for first-degree murder. So the sentences were read, Mrs. Parker felt a mixture of sorrow and relief. Justice had been served, but the price had been steep. Nothing could bring her niece back, and the once close-knit family was shattered beyond repair. Left to grapple with the loss and betrayal, Mrs. Parker knew the echoes of that fateful night in the swamp would linger forever. The tragic event served as a haunting reminder of how deeply love, jealousy, and betrayal could destroy lives, leaving only hard edge in their wake. On December 15, 2009, in a quiet neighborhood in Atlanta, Rachel Carter opened her door to someone she should have turned away. What started as a friendly conversation with a neighbor's son quickly unraveled into a tangled web of secrets that no one in the close-knit community could have ever imagined.
Blood had already been spilled, and the life of a suburban housewife would become a haunting story passed along in hushed whispers across the block. Rachel, or Raj as most knew her, was a stunning 38-year-old woman married to David Carter, a successful businessman. To outsiders, their life seemed perfect: a beautiful home, luxury cars, and a life filled with privilege. But beneath the surface, Raj felt a void that no amount of wealth could fill. That fateful afternoon, with David away on yet another business trip, Raj found herself drawn to Ethan Wilson, the 22-year-old son of her next-door neighbor. Ethan had grown up right next door, a smart and ambitious young man with a bright future ahead of him. So over the years, Raj had watched him mature from a boy into a man, and something about his youthful energy sparked something inside her that she hadn't felt in a long time.